What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto neglected and injured by his parents? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. What is a family? What distinguishes a family from, say, a group of friends? Perhaps, from an alliance between strangers? He used to ask himself that every night when he was little. No older than 6 or 7 years. It was ironic, really, because of the fact that he was supposed to be part of this picture-perfect family. The diamond-sketched household of Konoha, that everybody looked up to, a few even blindly worshipping. But they just never saw the broken gears that cursed a seemingly intricate clock. After all, his father was never truly around for him, as neither was his mother. Father, mother. The words rang hollow in his mind, despite the painstakingly massive desire to fill them with love and affection. The same love and affection he often saw other parents give their children. The love and affection his parents gave to his younger sister, but not him. His father, he understood, was the Hokage, a legendary hero to the village of Konoha. A fact that he and his sister, Narumi, once took pride in. She still did. He didn't. The ugly truth was that, through his heroic actions, and selfless sacrifices, all in the name of Konoha and its denizens, he had inadvertently given up one important thing. His childhood. Ever since they were little, when they were told that the Kyuubi had been sealed into Narumi, prior to their birth, Narumi had been given preferential treatment. Their parents trained her, leaving him to study basic scrolls on his own, often absent-mindedly dismissing him, in order to hone Narumi's skills. Every time they finished, they would tell him the same excuse, that they were tired and could pick up the next day. Only, instead of picking up, they merely repeated the process. It sickened him, in all honesty. You know, not that many 10-year-olds have depressing thoughts like these. It's making me suicidal. Ah, the Kyuubi, his emotional outlet and the only entity that he trusted. It was ironic, how the one thing that the village hated and feared, the one demon that his parents worked so hard to defeat, was locked within him. At least, his mental conscious, anyhow. Narumi held the actual chakra of the demon. Sorry, Kurama-san. I forget you can hear me completely. You know, Gaki, if you're so damn tired of this, why not run away? And then? What do I do after that? Wander around, like a lost beggar? I need a plan for that to work, one that would take weeks, if not months, to plan and prepare for. No, I want to, but not without a plan. For a mere pup of a monkey, you possess more intuition and foresight than most humans twice your age. I'm moderately disappointed. Because I'm better than them? No, because a mere child is more emotionally mature than the adults. It's pathetic, really. Oh, well, thank you. You're welcome, monkey boy. Casting all praise aside, what should I do? About? Running away, what should I do? I won't lie, Kurama-san. The prospect of a new independent life is, well, rather beautiful. Oh, well. Lay low for now, pup. Actually, don't you have a graduation ceremony to attend? Mentally slapping himself, Naruto shot up from his bed, sitting up, standing up, leaping towards the closet, and opening it, all in one fluid motion. I'm going to be late, he yelled, pulling out a clean white t-shirt, putting on a white hoodie, navy stripes running down the sleeves. He then changed from his pants into a pair of dark navy blue cargo shorts, before putting on his socks and shinobi boots. Ah, I'm going to be late, he shouted once more, grabbing his kunai and shuriken pouches, as he leapt out of his window. Kurama sighed inwardly. Bah, I'm getting soft. Still, the boy possesses a certain talent. He could become more powerful than even his father, that damned Yondaime. And he's all mine to shape and mold to my own liking. I love how these humans are so easy to influence, when they're young. But still, I need to find a way to reconnect myself again. I'm sure given time, Naruto will help me, Hey, Kushina. Where's Naruto? I thought he was with you? Asked Minato, as he crossed his arms, sitting down in the front row of the academy graduation ceremony. Kushina raised an eyebrow before she began thinning to herself, looking back at him. He took a nap, but I told you to wake him up, so he wouldn't be late. You told him, right, Minato? She replied, her voice taking a calm, but lethal tone. The blonde Hokage nodded, praying he had. He couldn't remember honestly, but if Naruto didn't show up, He'd have to figure out how to make it up to both his son and wife. Kushina-chan, Minato-san, cried a young boy, his raven hair waving in the breeze. He tanned towards the pair. Minato smiled, high-giving the young boy, as Kushina hugged him. Sasuke, you've grown up, so how's my favorite nephew doing? She beamed, as the Uchiha grinned sheepishly, scratching his head. Ahaha. I've done better, but I got second place overall, right behind Narumi. She's so awesome. Why can't you two train me like that? He asked loudly, but happily. Minato laughed, patting Sasuke's head, before giving him a thumbs up. Well, if I ever find a good shinobi to succeed me as Hokage, I might take up to teaching ninja again, he replied, drawing a wider grin from the Uchiha. Don't raise his hopes too high, Minato. I don't want him thinking he's the next Hokage without working for it, started a voice behind them. Minato turned around, his face blank, as he looked at the source of the statement. Oh, come on, loosen up a bit, Fugaku. I don't want to lose one of my advisors, from a stroke, he joked, as the Uchiha leader shrugged. So I hear that your kids graduated, and with flying colors, too, he said, drawing a raised eyebrow from both Minato and Kushina. Flying colors? But Naruto's never showed us his report card. How do you know? Asked Kushina, as Makoto arrived. Naruto's grades? He showed us just the other day, when he came to visit Itachi. You would think they were like twins. He's always following Itachi when he can. Actually, Itachi was training him the other day. Said Naruto wanted to learn to improve his taijutsu. She answered, adding a few details, shocking the Namikaze family. I've been busy with paperwork after we caught that genin working with Orochimaru, Kabuto, I think. I didn't know Itachi was teaching him in his free time. I'll have to see what Naruto knows. I'm rather impressed, and he excelled in his classes. Why didn't he tell us? Asked Minato, as Makoto turned away, ushering Sasuke towards the graduation stage. Fugaku shrugged, scratching his head. I wouldn't know. He reminds me of Itachi, more relaxed and easygoing. But he comes from an Itachi mold nonetheless, replied Fugaku, hoping the lie worked. The last thing he needed was Minato causing a scene over the truth. Flashback. So how's the ramen noodles, Naruto? Asked Makoto, as she sat down, serving Itachi and Fugaku, who was reading a newspaper at full attention. Naruto happily nodded, giving the Uchiha matriarch a thumbs up, as she blushed. She had always figured Kushina was the better cook. It's awesome, Makoto-san. You're an amazing chef, he laughed, drawing a smile from Makoto and Itachi. Despite his best attempt to hide it, Fugaku felt a small twitch at the corner of his mouth. That kid had the uncanny ability of drawing even atomic ounces of happiness from the depressed people. Hi, thank you, Naruto-kun. We ran out of chicken, and the meat stall was closed, so I used beef. Is that okay? Naruto once again nodded, bowing his head. Yes, it's okay. Besides, you offered me free dinner, so I can't really complain, he smiled. Fugaku nodded from behind his paper. Damn, he loved this kid's personality. Naruto, how did your practice go today? I hear you finally got the chakra concentration. How far did you get? Asked Itachi, causing Fugaku and Makoto to eye Naruto in surprise. Chakra concentration? You're learning that already, Naruto-kun? Isn't that supposed to be until you join a genin team? That's at least a few years away, exclaimed Makoto, as Fugaku nodded in agreement. It is true, Naruto. How long have you been practicing it? Most academy students can't manage that yet. He's only been taught it yesterday, answered Itachi, drawing a suspicious stare from his parents. The Uchiha prodigy merely shrugged. Call him my protege, he said, as Makoto shook her head. Why not ask your father to train you, Naruto-kun? He must have time, right? She asked, before Naruto looked down sadly. He spends most of his time training Narumi. Most of what I know is either self-taught, or something that Itachi taught me. Fugaku cast the other two Uchiha a careful gaze, practically asking. We had to talk to Minato about this. They both nodded. Have you tried talking to them? Asked Makoto, knowing that his family was obviously started to place more priority on Narumi, due to her condition. It wouldn't end good, and she knew firsthand what could happen to a child, if there wasn't enough care in their life. Itachi was proof of that, and it had taken him years to regain his sense of emotions. It's okay, Naruto-kun. It's getting late, so why don't you stay here for the night? You can share bunk beds with Itachi, she smiled. Naruto nodded, rubbing his eyes as he yawned. Itachi stood up, carrying the small 10-year-old upstairs, to tuck him in. Watching the two disappear, Fugaku and Makoto sighed. You know, he's drifting away from his family it seems. We can't let them know. We'll give the boy recluse, but they have to fix this as a family. Flashback. End. So, do you know who is leading each team? Asked Kushina, as she looked at Narumi, who was across the stage, happily talking to Sakura and Ino. Yes, there's 4. But I only that Kakashi, Asuma, and Kurenai are each leading teams 7, 10, and I think 8. I don't know who's leading team 2, though. I heard that the Jonin personally requested just 1 student. I granted permission, on the grounds it's not Narumi. Answered Minato, smiling at Kakashi, who waved back from across the field. Kushina nodded, smiling in relief. Good, Kakashi will probably have chosen Naruto and Narumi, along with Sasuke, she sighed, much to Makoto's slight irritation. Planning your kid's future? Kushina, please don't repeat Fugaku and I's mistakes. Naruto baka, you're late, exclaimed Narumi, as the blonde boy landed a few feet away. Minato looked at him before shaking his head. He could have sworn that he saw a cold look in his son's eyes. Yo, Sasuke, grinned Naruto, ignoring Narumi's exclamation altogether. The Uchiha, however, merely grunted. Naruto merely shrugged, walking past him and Narumi, without even glancing at either of them. A fact that neither the Namikaze nor the Uchiha family missed. What is wrong with them? They need to show manners, huffed Kushina, frowning at her children's behavior. Fugaku, however, nudged his head, making sure Makoto saw him. Naruto was turning away from his family, quicker than they thought. So who do you think got put in what team? Asked Kiba, as he scratched his head, trying to guess who would go with who. Haha, I don't know, and as long as I'm with Sasuke-kun, it's all good, giggled Sakura, as Ino nodded in agreement. Narumi and Sasuke were too busy focusing on Naruto, however, to even listen to the Pinkette's words. They were using every ounce to observe him, taking note of how he constantly distanced himself from the group as a whole. Do you think something is wrong with him? Asked Sasuke, glancing at Narumi, who shook her head. No, this is normal for him. Although he seems more impassive today, but it could be graduation, she replied, tossing her red hair to the side, as she continued observing her older brother. Naruto, you're not a normal boy. Why can't you just be like a regular brother? Argue with me, tease me about some flaw. Anything. I want a true family. And it's like I may step away from it, yet that last step is like a mile. Maybe if I hadn't bragged about how mom and dad used to always pay attention to me, is it my fault? Am I to blame for what you are now? I probably am. Alright, I'll fix it then. I'll make sure mom and dad see you. I'm going to become Hokage, and I want you there, proud of me. You seem troubled, Narumi. What is it? The young Namikaze daughter sighed, before smiling at the Uchiha, giving him a thumbs up. Nothing, Sasuke, it's all right, she smiled, bringing forth a nod from him. Class, get ready. Team announcements are about to be declared, shouted Iruka, as the group of children instantly lined up in a straight file. Almost immediately, the surrounding crowd fell silent. A few parents were eager to see who their children would be training with. All right, Team 10, training under Sarutobi Asuma, is Nara Shikamaru, Akamichi Choji, and Yamanaka Ino. Naruto closed his eyes, yawning, as Ino scowled, upset at her luck of missing a team with Sasuke. Good riddance. Okay, Team 8, under leadership of Yuichi Kurenai, are Hyuga Hinata, Aburame Shino, and Inazuka Kiba. Woo, I'm on a team, roared Kiba, before being hit in the head with a rock. Shut it, Kiba, you're representing our clan, don't look like a kid that barely passed, yelled Sume, his mother. Naruto bit back a laugh. Hell, it was funny, he had to admit. And for Team 7, under guidance of Hitaki Kakashi, Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke, and Namikaze Narumi. Widening his eyes in shock, Naruto looked at Narumi, who was busy hugging Sakura and Sasuke, as she waved at their family. That was it, he was overlooked. He didn't have a team. None, no sensei, no teammates. TCH, he scowled, tears forming at his eyes as he turned away, walking off the stage. He didn't even bother paying attention to his mother yelling his name. He just wanted to forget it all. Damn, so he got overlooked? That's pretty harsh, started a woman, as she cast a gaze at the young blonde boy storming off. He quickly leapt onto a tree branch, zooming off in a blur. He had speed. Yes, perhaps. But we need that child, if we're going to go through with this plan. After all, you want your revenge, correct? Fine, I'll keep an eye on him and anybody near him. You know, it's not like you would have really reached good potential with those teens, brat. Naruto nodded, knowing the fix was telling the truth. Still, after the work I put in, I at least expected to have a team, so much for that. Why not train alone, make your own name, your own reputation? It doesn't work like that, though. Never said it had to be here, though. It's not that simple, though. I'm still the Hokage's son, and if I go missing, then they'll send the Anbu after me. And I doubt I can outrun them, when they're actually trying. Well, what about inside help? What do you mean? There's bound to be somebody here, at a decent position, that wants to leave. If they help you, we might be able to escape. No person here, with a decent position of influence would wish to leave, honestly. But somebody who has a criminal record might. What do you mean? What are you planning? A few days ago, my father caught a young man posting as a genin, who was working for Orochimaru, Kabuto, I think. One minor detail, my genius imbecile of a carrier, he's been caught. Well, it's up to us to fix that error, huh? You want to break out a high-security prisoner, who's been working for a man who is amongst the most wanted, in the land of four. Won't that be betraying your father? That puts us in a high probability of death. I won't do it. You're right. It would crush my father's conscience and possibly shatter his happiness. What? Why? He might even curse the Kyuubi for having ruined his perfect life. He might even be forced into hiding from the shame and... Let's fucking do this. Inwardly grinning at himself for the creative use of reverse psychology and manipulation of emotion, Naruto stood up, turning towards the village again. Alright. Prisoner hours are between 5 and 6. That gives me a 1-hour window. But I have to cancel my father's Hiraishin no Jutsu, so he can't immediately appear at the scene. But to do that, I'd have to find either Mom or Jiraiya. Unless I get Kabuto out of the cell, with the guard's approval. I pose as my father, order a lone interrogation with Kabuto, use that time to formulate a plan, distract the guard's attention while he escapes. For a depressed human, you're rather cunning, Gaki, I'll admit that. Well, this certainly isn't what I planned when I came to instigate a rebellion, but it's close enough, I assume, sighed Kabuto, as he stepped over the unconscious body of Kotetsu. Naruto shrugged, as he began rewinding the security tape, quickly deleting the escape footage. Alright, Kabuto. You'll keep your side of the bargain, correct? Asked Naruto, stunning the silver-haired teen. You know, were you anybody other than the Yondaime's son? I would have killed you by now, but... Being who you are, yes, I'll take you to Orochimaru. Though, I am curious why you wish to see him, of all people, he replied. Naruto smiled, before laughing softly. That's simple, really. Oh, yes, it is. I want to kill my sister. Kabuto let out an exasperated groan, before rolling his eyes. To hell with you, then. The last thing I want, or need, is another one of you emotionally crippled brats. Naruto shrugged, before turning away and making out of the main window. Alright, so maybe I over-exaggerated on that, but either way, I simply need her out of my life. Kabuto felt himself mentally smirk, his previous bad mood suddenly gone. So, he could use the kid's emotional instability against him? Easy. Well, in that case. The way I see it, maybe joining Orochimaru would work to your benefit? How so? Simple, really. He can help train you, make you reach your true potential, actually. Naruto scoffed, not bothering with the thought. Of course, but so could any high-profile ninja. Give me a good reason, now. Kabuto sighed. The kid wasn't all that stupid, after all. Why leave your sister in the past, or kill her, when you could humiliate her? Defeat her, and force her to live with the shame, that if she had treated you better, allowed you to receive love, she could have escaped this fate. Naruto closed his eyes, thinking over the proposition. I can join the most wanted traitor in Konoha history, forever shunning aside my ties to the village. And in return, I surpass my family, and force their blind eyes to see what they created, It's what I've wanted for so long, but it's like something is different from what I imagined. Like something is stopping me. Anybody can talk of hurting and killing, boy, but to actually do it is another case on its own. What do you mean? As much as I hate your father for sealing me away, I cannot deny that you are much safer under his care. Even if he barely manages to notice you as it is. Are you saying I should stay? I'm not saying what you should do. I'm saying that once you make either decision, there is no turning back. This is not a game in which you can restart at a good point. I understand. Opening his eyes, he stared at Kabuto, who stood in total silence, awaiting the boy's decision. Well, what's your answer? This is it. If I go, I can never come back. I'll be a nuke nin for the rest of my life. Let's go. My father makes his usual visits here in about 6 minutes, and he placed seals all over the village. We have 6 minutes to clear out of the village? That's impossible, with security as what it will be. Well, I guess we better hurry up then, huh? Kabuto sighed, before nodding. Better to escape while his luck was good. So much for weeks, possibly months, of planning, Uzumaki. Shut it, Kurama. So is this it? I can't turn back, now? You know, for a missing ninja, who isn't even close to 20 yet, you were quite the burden to capture. Although your little story explains why Naruto ran away, and was reported along with many Orochimaru sightings. So tell me, how did you come to the level of ability, in which you managed to hold your own against me? Sighed a tall figure, his spiky hair outlined by the dim light of the interrogation room. You could just barely make out the color, but even then you could tell it was a pure snow white. It then followed down his back, in a long ponytail fashion. What can I say? I was trained by a powerful woman, shrugged a figure from across the room. Having been initially judged by her voice, the figure was obviously a young adolescent in her late teens, close to 20, possibly. Alright, quite the smart-ass comedian, aren't you? Who exactly trained you? You've told us that it was a woman I once knew. But to be quite frank, that narrows down very little candidates, replied the original figure, leaning in to show his face. The hidden girl, however, merely shook her head, as she leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. She could have been a nervous wreck, but her impassive, yet disturbingly tranquil, demeanor was as set as a block of chakra-focused steel. Now, Jiraiya. You should show manners. All in due time, I will answer your questions. Now, how much time are you allowed in here? Asked the teen, yawning in earnest. Jiraiya felt his eye twitch, before shaking it off. I need to get the information. As long as I need be, with whatever means I deem necessary, he answered, drawing a nod from the young woman. Okay, just wanted to know. So, ask away. Alright, let's start off first, with how your organization managed to capture Naruto. Why do you need Jinchuriki? Where are the captured Jinchuriki? Why wage war against all the 5 great villages? How did you manage to hold together such a massive spy network? Who are your spy agents? Do you even know them? Who are all your members? What is the purpose of Akatsuki? Why are they now at war with Hoshoku? What is Hoshoku? Who's its founder? Yo, geez, calm down, give me some time to reply, at least. Groaned the teen, as she scratched her head, before letting out a long sigh. Fine, let's start with the easiest. Hoshoku is an organization that was founded upon Pain-sama's death. It was created in an effort to hunt down the Akatsuki. Wait, why? Wasn't Pain, as you call him, the leader of Akatsuki? That answer makes little sense. Well, if you let me finish, it would. Where was I? Oh right. Hoshoku was meant to hunt down the remaining Akatsuki members, which were listed as Kisame, Satori, Deidara, Zetsu, Hidan, and Kakuzu, along with a few more interesting members. You're referring to the revived shinobi? Precisely. How was it that Akatsuki managed to revive Tobirama Senju? Well, for starters, you have Naruto and Narumi to thank for that. Or at least managing to prevent any other more powerful shinobi from being reborn as an physical slave enemy. On that note, how is Naruto tied to Hoshoku? Simple, actually, he's our founder. What? Did you honestly think he was some innocent child who was caught by enemy shinobi? But, we didn't think EWOU would ever be able to orchestrate one of the most dangerous shinobi organizations in history? You'll have to get in line, Jiraiya. Lots of people underestimated his prowess. That single statement was enough to draw the sage's attention. What do you mean? Naruto was always a step ahead of you and Konoha. Truth be told, he was even, in rare moments, ahead of Pain. How did Naruto become an ally to Pain? At that very question, the young woman let out a Cheshire-like grin as she chuckled softly. Now that is the question I've been waiting for. With that, I can answer all your questions. Prepare to continue our little story. Continue? Yes, time to continue the story of Naruto Uzumaki. Told by yours truly, Tayuya Uzumaki. Wait, what do you mean by Tayuya Uzum? Shut up and listen, I won't repeat myself more than once. Where did I leave off? Naruto was escaping with Kabuto. Oh right, that's where everything changed. He never actually managed to meet the snake freak, to be honest. Wait, what do you mean? He was constantly seen with him. I literally have dozens of reports, in which Naruto was directly assisting him. Calm down, let me explain. Damn, he didn't actually meet him, at that point. That's when Konan-sensei found him, much to Kabuto's misfortune. What do you mean, his misfortune? Well, let me explain it. Wait, Konan? No, I thought she was dead. Tayuya scoffed, rolling her eyes in irritation. Thought? Or hoped? You Konoha residents tend to have a habit of feigning responsibility for your own subordinates, even when they're allegedly close to you. Just start the story. Back to present time. Who are you? Stuttered the small blonde 11-year-old Uzumaki, as he stumbled backwards, falling on his rear, directly into the dirt. She had seemingly appeared from the midst of thin air, in a swirling blur of paper. Knocking out Kabuto, a feat that Naruto would have struggled to accomplish with his abilities, in one swift motion. The silver-haired assistant to Orochimaru was never even given the chance to utter a sound. Now he, Naruto, was staring directly into her cold, unforgiving amber-hued irises. I think I want to vomit. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, I presume? Asked the mystery woman, not bothering to blink even once. Yes. Oh Kami, here it comes. Shut up and stay put. Move from where you stand, and I'll kill. Before the woman could finish, Naruto bent over to his side, heaving everything he had eaten for lunch prior to leaving the village. It had been one thing to claim his bluff over Kabuto, but with a true shinobi emanating her intent to kill, just feet from you, it was on an entirely different level. It was not something he could hide. Pathetic, scowled the woman, turning away from him. You're obviously not the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. You can't even hold your stead against a simple gaze. What do you know about Kurama? Asked Naruto, as he spat out the remaining vomit from his mouth, wiping away the sour and bitter liquid from his chin. The woman froze in mid-step, not even moving her chest to breathe. What did you just say? Looking up at her from his feeble position, Naruto took a few deep breaths, regaining a little of his normal composure. D-dang. That was a wake-up call. Watch it, boy. Don't reveal so much vital information to that woman. She isn't a regular kunoichi, she even reacted specifically to my name. Any human that holds that information without my knowledge isn't somebody to take lightly. Right, Kurama. You mentioned the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Why are you looking for them? Good, don't reveal your sister's name, or even her gender. It's the only leverage we have as of now. That's right, you're the Yondaime's first child, his son, aren't you? You know who the Jinchuriki is, don't you? Replied the woman, drawing a step closer to him. Naruto nodded, before scurrying away from her, the fear from her first approach fresh on his mind. Now you see what a true shinobi can do to you, child. What? She hasn't even laid a finger on you, yet you move away from her like a frightened mouse from a prowling cat. Pathetic. Naruto bit his lip, pushing back a tear, as he shut his eyes tightly, realizing the helplessness of his position in the situation. What is wrong? Asked the woman, her eyes having softened considerably. It was a strange, and rather nostalgic, sight. For years, she had been in the same form as the boy at her feet, curled up in fright at the presence of a more terrifying human being. She had despised them, the ones who frightened and terrorized the weaker, for no true purpose. And for this single moment, she had become one. I apologize. Naruto looked back up, seeing her once cold face, worn up into a rather black expression. She was holding out her hand, to help him stand up. He took it. I apologize for the unnecessary act of cruelty, and for the derogatory remark to your situation, she continued, never once breaking her mask of indifference. Naruto merely nodded, before gasping softly as the woman picked him up, tossing him over her back in a piggyback fashion. Dad hasn't held me like this in years. Where are we going? He asked, looking back at Kabuto's limp form. To take you back to your village. What? No. The woman immediately came to halt, turning her head slightly to look at him, causing him to gulp. Why not? It is your home village, is it not? Yes, I mean no. I don't have anybody there. You have a family, do you not? You're the Hokage's son, you most likely having children lining up to be your friends. No, I'm not really popular. My sister is, but not me. Besides, that'd simply be political affiliation, not real friendship. The woman raised an eyebrow, a bit surprised at the boy's use of words. Not many children would come to that conclusion. Not many children spend countless hours reading and teaching themselves, because their parents are too busy with their daughter. Your family ignores you? This had truly caught her by surprise, as many people outside Konoha had envisioned, and envied, the Namikaze family as picture perfect. Yeah. That's why I ran away. There's no family. Not for me, anyway. Much to the shock of the young boy, Naruto felt the woman turn away from their former direction, instead heading west. Where are we going? To Omegakure. And call me Conan, Naruto. Naruto nodded, accidentally letting out a small yawn, as he rested his head on Conan's shoulders. It was most likely already midnight, and he was quickly growing tired. Good night, he whispered, half asleep. Conan merely gazed in his direction, before waking onward, grabbing his legs behind her back, so he didn't fall off. She wasn't one for emotional salutations, much less a casual, good night. Politics, as in all things relating to government, and the management of others, tended to be drowned in volatile situations. Whether it was one person grumbling about dissatisfaction, chaining a wave of complaints, to an escaped criminal, who followed up by kidnapping your only son. It all caused headaches, and a severe stab wound to your insecurity as a Hokage, and even more so, as a father to your child. This is beyond horrible. If the public finds out that one of Orochimaru's subordinates broke free, and took Naruto, they'll cause a riot. If word gets out to the other villages, our security will become the laughing stock. Sighed Kakashi, as he rubbed his temples in exasperation. They couldn't have gone far, though, Kakashi-senpai. Judging from the camera footage, or lack thereof, Kabuto most likely broke out no more than an hour ago, took Naruto, then erased the tapes for whatever reason he had, stated Itachi, as he walked down the dark corridor, alongside Minato and Kakashi. As the trip made their way downwards, into the abysmal hallways, Kakashi came to a halt. Wait, why would Naruto even be down here, in the first place? Not only that, but how did Kabuto escape the guards' attention? Kabuto couldn't have honestly managed all this by himself. As the senior chief in command Anbu captain, and Yondaimi's primary advisor, Kakashi had come to take a certain sense of pride in his ability to spot even the most remote details in a situation. Itachi, however, had his own suspicions about what had happened. And neither Minato, nor Kakashi could know about it. Are you saying that Naruto might have had a role in the escape of Kabuto, Kakashi-senpai? Let's remember that being charged with the aiding of a criminal is a crime punishable by a minimum of 5 years in prison. And as Naruto passed his academy finals, despite not being given a team, he is still counted as a shinobi of Konoha, thus rendering him an adult, by shinobi regulations, replied the Uchiha, who noticed Minato's face pale considerably. Well, they always said not to underestimate the power of denial, when it came to parents. Now if only his parents could learn that lesson. Back to Tayuya and Jiraiya. 8 years later. This still leaves my questions unanswered, albeit I know now how Naruto came to be with Pain, but Conan. She was in on his conversion, too? Tayuya nodded, as she reclined in Get chair, crossing her and behind her had. Look, let's say that you don't have the best track record with students, okay? Look at how he ended up. Smirked Tayuya, as she watched the older man's face contort with rage. Jiraiya clenched his fists, but quickly relaxed himself, closing his eyes. Tayuya merely scoffed. Thwack. Before the kunoichi could react, she felt a powerful hand fly across her right cheek, knocking her right off the chair. Don't push your luck, Tayuya. You know that the only reason you're alive is because he ordered it, as part of the terms. Haha, you really think so? Damn, Konoha truly is foolish then. But what can we expect, from a village that ordered AIM to be Burr? I know damn well what happened at the siege of Omegakure, Tayuya, roared the toad sage, slamming his hands on the small table. Do you think that shit makes it any better? After all, you were the one who scarred him. You were there when Pain died, and you caused him to snap. Blame yourself and your arrogant village, screamed the redhead, as she leapt up from the chair. Jiraiya sighed, knowing it was a lost cause to continue arguing. Fine. Just continue. What happened after Conan picked up Naruto? Taking a few deep breaths, Jiraiya suffered as he remembered that horrible night, 2 years ago. Tayuya, however, was still recovering from the disorienting blow to her face. Nothing much. I simply know parts of what Conan and Naruto talked about, but not all of their conversation. But what I do know is enough to see where Naruto took his first step into who he has become today. Kumogakure. I used to fear being the Jinchuriki. Then I grew up to the Hachibi. You could never come close to stopping me. As a matter of fact, you couldn't even touch my ass. If I was blind with both hands tied behind my back. So yeah, I'm the champ, but I had to taste the dust. Nobody would see me as a child. So I had to earn that trust. Grew up oh so wild, and in that while, I saw it was me and Hachibi, only us, so shut up with that fuss, put yo, fists up. Life was a fight, giving up wasn't right, so I kept it locked up tight, and I fought to the dead of night, holding up my head so high. See that weight on your shoulders is too damn light, for my might. My dreams soared to the sky, and you haters could never stunt my height. I came in a little brat, little rookie of the year. And I'm still here, can't you hear? I'll never fall from this grace, never slow down my pace. Back in dark, call me the black shinobi shark. I tore my enemies apart. Ripped through their hearts, with a flow so sharp, it was like getting stabbed with a dart. Enough. Just shut up, already. Roared the rakeage of Kumogakure as he covered both ears. The dark-skinned Jinchuriki merely grinned, his eyes hidden by his everlasting glasses. Yo, it's cool, bro. The trip to Konoha is still slow. Why the hurry to go? A let out a sigh, massaging his temple, as he felt one of his major veins nearing an aneurysm. B would one day cause his death from a stroke, if not a burst vein. I already explained it, B. We need to prove to the Leaf that Kumo is solidly holding true to the treaty. Which means an annual shinobi roster trade, which unfortunately, ends in the usual disagreement that each other side is cheating the other side. Why bother with the trade? If everybody accuses of a business haze? Plus, with this war going on, isn't it a bad idea to lose shinobi? It's part of the fragile treaty that honestly, is the only thing holding Konoha and Suna from a unified attack on Kumo, and the weakened Iwa and Kiri. This continued way with the Akatsuki and Hoshoku has taken its toll on the villages. We need to maintain whatever momentum we have. That makes sense. But I'm still confused, I guess. It's pointless, B, I know. 8 years earlier. So, why are you like you? Asked Naruto, as he wrapped his arm around Conan's shoulders, burying his face in the woman's neck. I have seen many things in my life, and they shaped me as I am now. Why do you ask? She replied, barely even glancing in his direction, as she leapt from tree to tree. Because my family hardly acknowledges me, and that's driven me to abandoning my village. I know you've faced far worse, so how did you grow stronger? Conan closed her eyes, relying on her body's natural instinct to guide her in the right direction, as she began reminiscing of all her past memories. As a child, I grew in poverty and war. The hidden rain village, was built upon an unmarked land that was located right between most of the 5 great nations. Due to those conditions, we were constantly caught in the crossfires of the surrounding villages, causing us to delve in a constant cycle of fear and anger. Naruto slowly took in a gradual, deep breath, attempting his best to quietly calm himself, and the things Conan said. Kyuubi, is this common? War and poverty, is it that common? War and poverty? It's as common as breathing is to humanity. Suffering to you, is like hatred to me. Your kind enjoys expanding upon it, through means of improving your own state of living, and even through self-proclaimed acts of kindness. Acts of kindness? How do they cause suffering? Aren't they supposed to help others? If a man is holding a bank filled with innocent people for a ransom, is he evil? Of course, that's an obvious answer. And what if the ransom was for an operation, needed to save his daughter's life? Would you show him to escape with the money, or sew him? And in the process, killing his daughter? Would you save the life of others, for the price of a young girl and the last remaining piece of hope left in a broken shell of a man? But what if? There are no what ifs in real life, boy. Every action you take will have negative and positive consequences. And it is a fact you will have to accept. I understand. How did you break out of that cycle? He asked, his unruly bangs covering his eyes in a foreboding shadow. Conan didn't bother with even opening her eyes, however, as she continued her way towards aim. Who says I broke from it? But, you're a strong shinobi. How could you still be in that street? Simply because one is trapped within a negative cycle, does not mean one cannot grow strong. We grew strong because of our dream to improve, to correct this world. How? How are you going to fix hundreds upon thousands? It's impossible, Conan. Then perhaps Nagato can open your eyes, Naruto. Nagato? Yes. But we will speak of this no more, until we reach the Tower of Aim, understood? Yes, ma'am. Conan nodded, and for the first time in years, cracked just a millimeter of a smile, across the corner of her lips. He's meant for great things. Naruto. Please, why did you do this? Asked a young woman, her crimson red hair waving in the wind, split into 9 ends. Just a few meters ahead of her, a spiky-haired blonde teen stood with his arms crossed. His shinobi vest torn and burnt at the waist, revealing an equally worn mesh undershirt. His skin was bruised and cut at multiple areas, yet he merely stood there, his face contorted in a look of pride and anger. Because, Narumi, I trained and pushed my body and mind to the very edge of my limits and even further beyond. Yet no matter how hard, nor what I did, I was still cast in your shadow. I, the savior and guardian of our people, was constantly living in the wake of my own clown sister. That fact, that nightmare, was thrown into my face all throughout my childhood. I realized, when I left, that despite whatever action I took, mother and father would never acknowledge my presence with you. Naruto. But why? Why join pain? He killed innocent civilians. Did you think I didn't know that, Baka? Replied Naruto, his voice snapping his younger sister at mid-sentence. What? I knew perfectly well that he planned to attack Konoha. I created the very outline to the invasion. Why? Our people died. Our mother was who? Do I look like I care? I joined Pain because I knew that by joining his cause, he would train me. I knew that by aiding him in his attack, I would gain the skill I needed. And with that, the difference in our own power would disappear. Everything was your doing. Letting out a menacing laugh, Naruto tossed his head back, in mirth. Ha 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 ha. That's right, little sister, I hated every single one of you self-righteous Konoha shinobi. And yet, at that final moment, when I ordered the invasion, I hesitated. I hesitated because I awoke one morning, not long ago, to realize that I had become attached to you and your friends. Naruto, the last of our true bloodline, the last of a dying breed, had begun to settle down with the same people who had neglected me as a child. I even began to fall for a girl who never cared for me. No love. Shut up. Do you honestly believe I'll fall for that again? It was a misunderstanding. Her and Shiko were never th. I said shut up. You all lied to me. Manipulated my own emotions. And still, the irony was that I was only moments away from accepting Konoha as a nice place to live. At least until Conan and Pain showed me the truth. But you never allowed others to help you. Why them? Why Conan and Pain? Do you not understand? They came to offer me, what all of you denied me. A place of my own, where I was seen for my own accomplishments. How can you say that? They tried to kill you. At the inter-village tournament? No, Narumi, that was where I realized the potential of what AIM truly offered me. You mean, that's where? Yes. That's where I joined Pain. I watched Hanabi Hyuga's progress, at the tutelage of Conan. And I knew right away, that I had to go back to them. Then why? Why stay with us? Why lead us on? Because, sister. How else would I keep Conan informed on your defenses? Wait, you were her informant. Then it was you that I saw. Yes, that was me, that you openly caught. And still, you couldn't come to the obvious conclusion. Then I see you took the pleasure in blabbering away the plan, Uzumaki. How expected, thundered a powerful voice, causing both teens to whirl around in shock. Maybe. That big bomb rosin shuriken combo was pushing it. A bit. gasped a much older Narumi, as she grabbed her right arm. It was horribly burnt, the internal damage from her jutsu now externally visibly. "Pa! Pathetic!" groaned Naruto, as he limped beside his sister, his entire body battered and bleeding. Narumi could only stare in awe, as he practically dragged himself onward, without once glancing back at her. "Go, now. I have one final technique left, Narumi." "No, let me help." No, you can't, go, now." Just as she was about to continue protesting, Narumi felt a hand strike swiftly at the back of her neck, before being overcome in blackness. "Naruto. You know you won't survive," stated a silver-haired shinobi, his one open eye focusing on the blonde. "I know, Kakashi. Now carry her away from here. You weren't ever planning on get away from here. Now, Kakashi. She was lucky to have a man like you." "Kakashi, what? Tell her that she's beautiful, and I'll save her a seat in the afterlife." "Alright, let's finish this, Madara," huffed Naruto, his bangs hanging over his eyes from the sweat and blood that covered his brow. "I must admit that you were the biggest challenger in a while, Uzumaki. But you lost, child. As soon as the full moon arises, I will active. I have one last jutsu left, you pompous relic, and it will end you, once and for all," smirked Naruto, as he began going through his hand signs, every muscle in his arm screaming in pain the slightest movement. Bakuden. No, Tensai," roared the blonde, aiming his palms at the Uchiha legend, who was frozen in place. "How did snarling, Naruto was dragged a few feet backwards, as a powerful beam of pure energy blasted outwards towards the Uchiha. "If you finish this attack, it'll kill us both from chakra exhaustion." "I know. To death and beyond?" "To death and beyond, Naruto," cried Kushina, as she shot upwards, clutching at the bedsheets around her. She could feel herself break into a cold sweat from the thrashing she caused amidst her nightmares. Kushina, wake up," yelled Minato, as he pinned her down, attempting his best to prevent herself from getting hurt. Naruto, don't." Realizing she had gone into a bit of hysteria, Minato quietly slapped her, instantly calming the redhead down. Am I Minato? I'm sorry, Kushina. It was just, I don't really know what to do," he sighed, shrinking back beside her. In all his life, Minato had never backed down, nor given up, when it truly mattered, but he could not deny that for the first time, he was utterly lost. He didn't know what to do about anything. The things that had once been routine for him, such as the slightest paperwork, now seemed like he was a genin, attempting to stand against the Shodan. "It's okay, Minato-kun. We're all just worried," whispered Kushina, wrapping her arms around the blonde Hokage. "It's my fault, though. I should have been there. I shouldn't have put off Kabuto's trial for so long. Naruto must have gotten curious, and gone down to investigate. Kabuto must have tricked him." Kushina closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. It hadn't been the same since Naruto's disappearance, and their family had taken its toll deeply. Narumi hadn't come out of her room in days, and Minato had been forced to literally drag out just that same morning. What kind of dreams were those, though? They felt so realistic. "That's not good enough, Naruto-kun, try again. I want you to finish the sequence quicker. And work on your stance. It's sloppy and disgusting, and for Kami's sake learn to dodge," snapped Konan, her amber eyes growing cold, as Naruto fell hard to the ground. As he sat up, he wiped off the sweat that was cascading down the sides of his face, before shortly standing back on his feet. Grimacing, he let out a groan as his muscles began throbbing from the pain and soreness of the past few weeks' training. Ever since Pain had assigned her as his mentor, he had undergone a complete overhaul to both his lifestyle and even clothes. Konan had taken the old jumpsuit his father had given him, and replaced it with black cargo shorts, a mesh undershirt, and a black vest with orange outlines that only reached his mid-ribcage. She had also replaced his shinobi sandals with a new prototype shinobi boot, that was more durable and chakra-sensitive, yet weighed less than the sandals. It did serve to keep the dirt and sand out of his toes, which he had no complaints about, whatsoever. That did, however, bring him to the subject of his new mentor. Konan, despite her seemingly bipolar attitude, had proven to be what he has always wanted, to an unnecessarily extreme extent. She had presented him with a strict no-nonsense method of training, in the form of chakra-based gravity seals, to add to her self-proclaimed shinobi's diet. Although, he still had a hard time figuring out why she insisted in training barefoot. ISW swear. She's going to kill me. Shut up, boy. Marvel at the opportunity you have been presented. When a shinobi of sub-adequate potential offers to train you, appreciate it and take advantage. It's difficult as it is, simply to find a shinobi of any recognizable talent, that carries no pathetic quirk. What? Yumea. Dodge. Before Naruto figured out what the fox had meant, he was brought back to a painful reminder of reality, as Conan's smooth, yet hard as damn steel, fist crashed directly into his jaw. Next thing he knew, he was airborne, flying straight into the hard dirt meters away. Focus, Naruto. Don't lose attention of your opponent for a single moment. Snapped the angel of aim. Flipping onto his feet, Naruto wiped away a trace of blood from his lips before nodding. Ignore the pain. Ignore the pain. Good, now I want you to charge at me. Let's go. Nodding at her orders, Naruto quickly dashed towards Conan, sliding at her feet at the last second, only to have her flip over him easily, lightly tapping the back of his head with her bare foot. Too slow, quicken your attacks and don't rely on last-second movements. Dropping down to his hands, Naruto immediately proceeded to attempt a spin kick, whirling around in a hand spin. Conan, yet again, dodged the attack by ducking down. She shot her hand up, grabbing the blonde by his ankle, and threw him backwards into a tree trunk, leaving a large dent on the trunk. Don't attempt flashy attacks, unless they are guaranteed to produce the results worth the unnecessary energy cost, she stated, turning to face the blonde. Nodding in approval, Naruto sighed, before wincing as a sharp pain shot across his back. He carefully tried to stand up, but discovered that his back was possibly injured severely, as it refused to allow him the slightest movement. You'll need to spend a few hours in the biogenesis tank, Naruto, informed Conan, much to his chagrin. Not again. The biogenesis tank, a name given to Pain's revolutionary medical miracle, was a large pod that contained a special liquid that would cure the most life-threatening ailments, and even allowed the body to adapt a minor amount to it. The first example, in Naruto's case, was when he shattered his left elbow, and utterly chakra burned all his chakra coils within his legs in a training session. Not even 8 hours in the biogenesis, and the machine had broken down any loose bone fragments, rebuilt his elbow and damaged nerve endings. His coils had been broken down by the liquid enzymes, then replaced with new ones that were more attuned to his training requirements. Unfortunately, as Conan had told him, the biogenesis came with its own price. Any more than 4, perhaps 5, uses within a lifetime, and the enzymes in the liquid would begin eating at your body's DNA structure, gradually mutating you into a mere puddle, figuratively. His overall skeleton, however, had been molded into a lighter, but much more flexible and durable bone variation. The second case, however, was when he suffered a heart failure and pulmonary arrest during training. That session in the biogenesis had given him a far stronger cardiovascular system, and strengthened his lungs drastically. It had also given him a much higher pain tolerance, each visit. Beautiful. I'm already up to 3 sessions. That leaves me possibly 1 more. I'd rather not risk it though. I'll probably have a spine of steel now. He sighed, before Conan pushed his back forward with her foot. Og. Falling down in sheer pain, Naruto felt his own spit dribbling down his chin, as Conan re-corrected his entire spine. Be grateful that the biogenesis gave you a higher pain threshold. I doubt you would have stayed conscious, had you not been adapted to this, she stated blankly. Naruto rolled his eyes, straightening up as the severe discomfort passed. I think being out cold right now would be a significant improvement. That's better. Has anybody ever told you that you are a very strict taskmaster when it comes to training? You are my first student. Never mind. Letting a smile escape her lips, Conan shook her head, waving at Naruto. Let's go eat, Naruto-kun. Then you can take a shower. Yay, but you're eating your vegetables. Damn, slap. I will not have you cursing when there could be orphans around. Yes, ma'am. Strict, indeed. 8 years later. Asterisk to Yuya's interrogation. Okay, hold on, wait a second. Blinking, Yuya stared at Jiraiya for a moment, before the elder shinobi sighed. What? First of all, how did you know about Kushina and Minato's conversation? Second, you still haven't explained as to how, nor when, you met Naruto. Grinning, Tayuya sheepishly scratched her head before shrugging. Well, it is going to be a long story. As for how I know what Kushina and Minato said. Well, I can say this. As her former apprentice, I know a lot about what went down in Kushina's life. You were her apprentice? For a time, yes, but that's beside the point, anyway. Sighing, Jiraiya looked down and shook his head. We might need a. Has she said anything? She'd a young girl, as she opened the door into the interrogation room. Actually, yes. But not a lot. She's telling us how Naruto grew up. Nodding, the young girl sat down. Catching a glimpse of her platinum blonde hair and pale blue irises, Tayuya's face turned into a dead expression of no emotions. Why is she here? She asked, causing the girl to flinch slightly. Taiyu-chan, I'm sore. Don't call me that. Yamanaka, don't you ever dare call me that. After all the shit he did for you. You turned him in and set him up. It was for his own good. I didn't know it was a trap. Scoffing, Tayuya turned away, carrying her back to Ino. The blonde, however, took a deep breath, as she felt her eyes grow teary. What else happened? Continue the story, she whispered, much to Tayuya's surprise. Fine. 8 earlier, 4 months after Naruto's escape. Let's see. I need salt, sugar, carrots and eggs, broccoli, plus lettuce. I should get some beef and chicken while I'm at it. Sighed Naruto, as he made his way through the food stalls in the Omegacure supermarket. It had been only a few months since Conan had taken him under wing, and since Pain had taken it upon himself to teach him about politics and philosophy. What had become interesting, however, was that Conan would constantly begin fawning over his diet and food choices. In addition, she would constantly keep an open eye each time he met a new friend, more keenly on the girls. Pain, despite his constant attempts to disprove otherwise, would grow irritated each time Naruto went out, late at night to go sightseeing around the village. Each time he did, Conan would make subtle accusations, that he was to blame for not teaching the boy discipline quickly enough. Pain would simply do the same thing each time, and turn around to say, your student, your responsibility. Now that I think about it, they're almost like family. Oh, be careful, cried a small voice, as Naruto came to a sudden halt. He had accidentally bumped into a young girl, not too much older than he. Possibly around 14, though. My bad, he laughed, his face turning pink from the embarrassment of how distracted he had been. The girl waved her hand gently, brushing off his apology with a smile. No, it's all right. I'm sure you were merely thinking of something important, she replied, earning a nod from Naruto. Why yes. I was thinking of my mentor, Conan-san. Oh, so are you Conan's new apprentice? You know her? Asked Naruto, casting the girl a confused glance. Now that I look at it, she's actually cute. Haha, wait for it. What? Just wait. Haha, of course. My mentor is the commander for Omegacure's guerrilla defense tactics. She giggled, causing the blonde's jaw to drop to the floor. What? Commander? Yes, that is right. Oh no. I'm late. I'm sorry, but I must go. We have an important meeting soon, and I might be late. Bye, miss, smiled Naruto, before the girl smiled and leaned into his ear. By the way, my name is Haku, I'm a boy. There it is. G-guy. Ha ha ha. I love it. You ass. You knew. I claim no such knowledge, boy. But I do say, that your time is almost up for grocery shopping. Oh, crap. Let's see. I need salt, sugar, carrots and eggs, broccoli, plus lettuce. I should get some beef and chicken. Deja vu. You know, Itachi. It's been a while since I was sent on a mission. What about you? Asked Kakashi, as he sat down on a log to read to his favorite book. Itachi merely shrugged, as he activated his Sharingan, examining his entire surroundings. It's been too long. I've almost forgotten the thrill of a challenge. Kakashi nodded, sighing as he flipped a page. Nowadays, the only real challenge is paperwork for the Hokage. Yes. What was your last mission, Kakashi? Mine? It was a recon objective, near the Land of Rain. Omegacure, at the time, was in a civil war between Hanzo the Salamander and an extremist organization known as the Akatsuki. Minato sent me to scout the power of both sides. What was yours? An assault mission. Oh, I never knew you did those? Project Runway. Wait, you were in that project? Yes. It was to be an assassination on a renegade group that compromised of known terrorist Deidara of the Rock, former swordsman Kisame of the Mist, and led by Orochimaru of the Leaf. It was a failure, however. I heard about that. Anko and Katetsu were placed in the hospital for almost 2 years, correct? And Asuma died. Yes. Itachi. Even to this day, Hiruzen has asked me to forgive myself for an action I could not have stopped. But at the time, I allowed my arrogance to gain the better of me. My mistake put my team in a situation that forced Asuma to sacrifice his life for us. He died for a cause, Itachi. That's more than what many can say. True. But still, I refused to show my face to Hiruzen or Kurenai. Ah, Kurenai. She had a crush on him. How tragic, yet romantic. Haha, chuckled a voice from above the two Leaf elites. Itachi quickly closed his eyes as a small grin appeared on his face. Kakashi sighed, putting his book down. Page 89, third paragraph. Well, Kakashi Hitaki. It's a shame you didn't bring backup. Laughed a second voice. 4 of them, Kakashi. Which do you want? Kakashi paused, before counting them out. I'll take Hidan and Kisame. Then I get Kakuzu and Sasori. Last to finish has to ask Anko on a date? Deal. Patience, by all definitions, was an obvious virtue. It was, however, equally obvious to be amongst the weakest. Possibly exceeded, only by humanity's inability to truly forgive others. Either way you looked at it, eventually both routes crossed, and somebody would eventually lack the patience needed to forgive. Such was that, in Naruto's current predicament. He refused to accept the idea of forgiving the utter treachery and foul play that had been utilized by Konan in her most recent training session. She forced him to activate his gravity seals during a series of dodging rounds. Without a warning. Honestly, would you quit being such a child and actually give this some effort? Asked Konan, as she focused chakra to her chest and arms to pick up a large rock, the size of Naruto's head. Effort. You're throwing giant Santo. Dodge. Quickly widening his eyes, Naruto halted at mid-sentence, dropping nimbly to his stomach in a push-up position. He could only wince as he felt the wind above him break at the speed of the stone that flew past him overhead. You barely escaped that one. Pay attention. Your reaction time is barely that of a low-class chunin, snapped the blonde's mentor, as she picked up 2 more rocks. It's a good thing I woke up early to collect a moderate pile of stones, she thought to herself, admiring the 22-foot-tall pile of sediment. See, can we seriously take a break? I'm going to die here, gasped Naruto. Konan simply stared at him, before hurtling both rocks in her hands at the blonde. Think fast, she cried, not taking her eyes off the blonde for a mere moment. As if on instinct, Naruto leapt into the air, using the first stone as a makeshift step, before he handspringed off the second projectile. Unfortunately, as soon as he landed, a foot crashed into his stomach, causing him to double over in pain. As I said, pay attention to your opponent, sighed Konan, before she noticed a scowl on the teen's face. Why you? Never said. You would hit. Back, he stuttered, clutching his gut. Konan felt her eye twitch before she turned away. I never said that I wouldn't, did I? She replied coldly, much to his surprise. True. Can we take a break, Konan-san? He asked, taking deep breaths. Fine, but only a half-hour break, then it's back to training. Understood. Nodded Naruto, as he watched Konan sit down on the edge of a small stream, where she gracefully slid off her shinobi sandals. With a small bubbling sensation at the pit of his stomach, Naruto silently observed as she took her time, touching the surface of the water with her toes. After a minute of merely touching it, however, Konan carefully sank her feet into the water. You know, I can tell you're watching, Naruto, she stated, still looking at her own feet, as the blonde began to sweat. Crossing crap, she'll think I'm a pervert. So sorry, I didn't mean to. Letting out a soft, and surprisingly quiet, chuckle, Konan patted the grass next to her. Taking it as a signal to sit down beside her, Naruto complied, taking his spot. He soon decided that this would be a good chance to ask her a question that had been on his mind the past few weeks. Hey, Konan-san, yes? I have a question, if I may ask it. Go ahead, Naruto. What is it? You usually seem to have us train barefoot, despite the fact that we rarely fight as shinobi in those conditions. Why is that? Growing silent, Conan took a few moments to gently splash the water with her feet, before looking at the sky. Because it reminds me of what it was like for me, as a child growing up. Life doesn't always present you with the conditions you might see as realistic. Huh? What do you mean? Flashing her apprentice a warm smile, he blushed softly, before she turned to gaze at the few stars that were beginning to appear. As a kid, I grew up in poverty during the Third Great Shinobi War. I remember reading about that. A megacure was located in the middle of multiple great nations. Yes, and as such, we were also subjugated to many skirmishes, battles, and wars. By the time I was born, this village had been ravaged in violence. So growing up in my childhood, I was dependent on adapting to a dangerous and fast-paced life, in order to survive. Biting his lower lip, Naruto held back his tongue, as he noticed Conan's somber look. How did you escape that lifestyle? Casting him a surprised look, Conan turned back to count the stars. In truth, I never really escaped. The megacure is still torn apart by war, and I'm still living here. But for a few years, I was living in bliss with my teammates, Nagato and Yahiko. We were being trained at that time by Jiraiya of the Leaf. Jiraiya trained you? Yes, for a while, before he left. Oh, what about your teammates? Nagato is in hiding, for good reasons, and Yahiko, I'm sorry, Conan-san. Allowing a sad smile to escape her mask of indifference, Conan flinched slightly, as she felt Naruto's small finger wipe away a single tear. I'm going to grow strong, Conan-san, for you, and for the orphans in AIM. Naruto, so that none of them have to continue suffering, I'll be the protector of AIM. Feeling a genuine laugh surfacing, Conan covered her mouth, before nodding. She gently patted Naruto's head, before laying down on the grass, her arms crossed behind her head. He'll be an amazing man when he grows up. I wonder what it would have been like, had the Yondaime Hokage not killed Hanzo all those years ago. I see you two are enjoying your leisure time, correct? Asked a gruff voice, causing the duo to look back. Standing with his arms crossed was a tall man, his lower face hidden in a mask. He wore no shirt and only a pair of slacks. Attached to his back was a giant sword. Zabuza. Pleasure seeing you here. I wouldn't suppose Haku is accompanying you? Hey, you may as well. I see your apprentice is here, too. Conan nodded, waving a hand between her student and the AIM commander. Naruto, this is Zabuza, the head of AIM's guerrilla division. Zabuza, this is, as you figured out, Uzumaki Naruto, my apprentice. Pleasure to meet you, kid, smirked Zabuza, as he extended his hand out. Standing up, Naruto hesitated for a second before carefully taking it. Almost immediately, however, Zabuza tightened his grip. Naruto, in return, began focusing chakra into his hand, strengthening his own. This made Zabuza laugh, as he quickly let go. Haha, I like you, kid. Trying to match me takes balls, and most people wouldn't think to do it. I see why Conan took you in. Cautious, too. You don't see that in brats nowadays, at all. Naruto smiled, before sitting back next to Conan, who merely smirked at Zabuza. I told you, he has a high ceiling. Let's not get, Conan. You've grown more outgoing, since Konoha entered high tension with Kumo. I met their Hokage once, Namikaze Minato. He fought with Pain during a raid on a Konoha vessel. Roughly 2 years ago. I remember him talking about that. A while back, said Naruto, catching the two veteran shinobi by surprise. Turning to the source of the sudden statement, Zabuza and Conan each stared at their blonde companion. He was talking about the difficulty he had figuring out ways to bypass Pain's defenses. It seemed as if the Hiraishin no Jutsu allowed him the manner in which to draw near, yet Pain wouldn't allow any of his special kunai to get closer than a few dozen meters. It was actually frustrating to him. Conan felt a small sense of pride well up inside her before she shook her head. In all truth, Pain was also frustrated at his conflict with the Yellow Flash. Prior to Minato, Pain had never been in a situation where he had to truly depend on pure defense, and was unable to go on the offensive. To be honest, I refused to believe it until I watched him in person. The speed that the Hiraishin used was inhumane. Father spent many years perfecting that jutsu. Now that I think about it, did he teach you any jutsu? Even the weakest one? Asked Zabuza, his level of curiosity now peaking. No, he didn't teach me any of his, answered Naruto, turning to look away. Conan scowled, feeling the injustice in his answer. Oh, somewhat disappointed, Zabuza sighed. Damn, didn't even pass on a drop of knowledge onto the kid. That's cold. But that doesn't mean I didn't learn any of them, added the blonde. I knew I loved this kid. By any means necessary, grow stronger. I'm sorry that I'm late, my apologies, stated Haku, as he landed next to his mentor. The feminine-featured boy scratched his head, before sighing. There was a young girl near the central district that was in need of directions, so I offered to show her WH. Save it, kid. As believable as your excuses are, which I admit they truly are, I happen to know that you were dining at the local ramen shop. So don't try to fool me, cut in Zabuza, turning a hard gaze onto the teenage boy. Haku nodded sharply, before softening his features, and looking at Conan and Naruto. Conan-san, Naruto-kun, it's a pleasure to meet you. I see you're enjoying the afternoon sky. He smiled, taking a glance at the slowly appearing stars in the pink and purple skies. While AIM was in general a rainy village, on the few occasions that the clouds would disperse, the setting sun would create a magnificent view. It was on these occasions that he had taken note that Conan and Naruto had begun to simply relax and hold conversations about life and their independent experiences. If they were fortunate, they would last hours on end simply chatting into the dead of night. In which case, they simply fell asleep under the starry sky. So far, however, the shortest conversation they held was only 6 hours long. You know, I'm really starting to appreciate this village. It's different from Konoha. But I like that, yawned Naruto, as he watched Zabuza lean against a tree. Haku had already gone onto the lake surface and begun creating an ice sculpture. All in all, the people here had more of an affect as a family than his actual relatives had in Konoha. Oh yeah, I could definitely grow up here. Oh, Naruto, that reminds me, I have an important document for you, started Zabuza, tossing a small scroll at him. Catching, Naruto opened it, reading the contents hungrily. What is this? He asked, confused at the directions. Zabuza merely grinned beneath his mask. Your first mission. It's a rescue operation near the outskirts of the Land of Fire, replied the guerrilla commander. Conan quickly shot up to her feet, grabbing the veteran by his jaw and pulling him down to her eye level. Does the Hokage know about this? Do you know the kind of problems this could us into? If they spot Naruto, they'll take him away. No, what kind of question is that? But due to their ongoing tensions with Iwa, they can't afford to spend troops on these petty missions. They won't take me away, Conan-san. Naruto, I know they will. No, they won't, because I refuse to abandon my promise to you. I will succeed in this mission, and I will come back. So, when should I leave? Asked the blonde, before the veteran shook his head. You have to meet your partner, first. Who is it? Me? Replied a male voice, from behind the blonde, causing him to turn around to see the source. You, cried Naruto, stumbling backwards, as he caught sight of an old man with dreadlocks. His eyes were hidden by a pair of sunglasses, and he wore a worn-out yellow tracksuit. Yes, I'm me, and you're you. That's the basic principle of life, replied the elder, much to Naruto's bewilderment. No, you're Chen, the taijutsu master, eh? So even in these parts, I'm well known? Wait, you. I recognize you. I'm Minato's son, yes, so why are you my partner? Aren't you a shinobi of Kono? Was a shinobi, kid. I'm dead, as the legal jargon goes. But to answer your question, I'm your partner because this mission was requested by me, personally. Although, I didn't expect AIM to send in a mere child. Don't underestimate me, old man. Why is this mission so personal? Asked Naruto, drawing attention from Zabuza, Conan, and Chen. He's being very direct, almost businesslike. Because, kid, that rescue mission is to rescue my granddaughter, responded Chen, as he turned to gaze at the blonde. Your granddaughter? Izami, if I remember. She was only 8, the last I saw her in Konoha. Who kidnapped her? Some bandits, but I don't know who the leader was. I didn't catch a good look before their escape. Did he look like a bitch? Asked Zabuza, butting in. Naruto and Chen stared at the man, before shaking their heads. Yes. Now answer this. Will you accept, or not? Grinning, Naruto straightened up his mesh shirt and black-orange short vest. Hey, of course, old man. What kind of aspiring shinobi would reject his first mission? So this is what his room looked like, whispered Narumi to herself, as she carefully closed the door to her brother's room behind her. She had made sure to stay home when her parents had gone to a cookout by the Nara family. I've never been here, now that I think about it. Actually, neither has mom, nor dad. Silently moving through the grand space afforded by Naruto's neatness, Narumi began noticing the contrast between her and her older sibling. Where her floor was littered in scrolls and magazines, Naruto's was neatly vacuumed and clean. In addition, his books were organized by category of information and combat. He had gone further ahead to subcategorize the combat section into ninjutsu, taijutsu, genjutsu, and tactical principalities. She never could have imagined, nor believed, that her brother had kept this secret to himself. So much order. How long did he spend cleaning? Where did he get the time? I always saw him training when I looked. Catching a glimpse of a small red book, Narumi slowly reached for it, noticing the title. My journal. His journal. Opening the small book, Narumi quickly sat down on the bed, glancing to her right. There was a portrait of Naruto, smiling as he held up a peace hand sign. Grabbing it, she took out the photo, sliding it under her forehead. Hitei. Immediately, she began reading the entries Naruto had written, dating back to almost 2 years ago. March 15th. I decided to maybe start writing my memories. I know I shouldn't, since there's a chance my parents might find it, but I can't hold this in anymore. All they do is talk about Narumi, like I'm not even here. Narumi this and Narumi that. Why can't Naruto be like Narumi? Maybe if they had trained me. How am I supposed to be like her, when they won't even give me a first step? I want to see father become Hokage, without getting into a single argument. I want to see mother and father raise a child without ever hugging or loving them. Oh right, that was me. Swallowing a lump in her throat, Narumi shut her eyes tightly, biting her lip as she began to sniffle. Naruto, it was my fault, my fault, my fault. You miss him that badly? Asked a voice, causing the young Uzumaki girl to jump up in shock. Sasuke, she squeaked, looking at the Uchiha heir, as he sat on the windowsill, in a lazy fashion. Yeah, I've been coming here since Naruto left, he replied, looking around the room. It was exactly as the blonde had left it. Why? Asked Narumi, her voice still shaky. Sighing, Sasuke looked at the sky outside, before shaking his head. What's the point of growing strong, when there's nobody to rival you? He asked. Narumi merely looked at him in a confused manner. What? Look, Narumi, let's be honest. Naruto was stronger than us, you know it. What does that have to do with Yo? He was my role model. What? He was quiet, serious, and smart. He didn't get chased by fangirls, and he was the first to train and the last to leave. Even the teachers would have to drag him away from the fields, sometimes, replied Sasuke, drawing a nod from Narumi. It was true, I guess. He was like my brother. I was always jealous. Naruto never tried in the academy, yet he would tie me in grades. It was like I was seeing Itachi, but younger. I always wanted to be like him. Carefully pulling out the picture of Naruto, Narumi stared at his form, admiring his honest smile. Naruto. I'll find you. I'll bring you back, and as long as it takes, I'll make it up to you. Sasuke. Yeah? I'm going to train, and I'll become Hokage. Just so I can find my Naruto. Sasuke nodded, smiling at his best friend. Yeah, I'll help, too. Wait, did she say, my Naruto? What's wrong? Asked Narumi, noticing Sasuke's confused expression. Huh? Sorry, Narumi, I have a question. What is it? Did you have a crush on Naruto? What? What kinda question is that? She shrieked, causing Sasuke to hold his hands up in innocence. Just curious. Oh, hang on, I gotta go. Bye, exclaimed the raven-haired boy, as he jumped away. As soon as he was out of sight, Narumi quickly reached to one of Naruto's drawers. Pulling out one of his clean shirts, she placed it to her face, assuring the faint scent. I'll find him. I'll bring Naruto back. Had Sasuke stayed behind, he would have seen her sapphire blue eyes gradually dilate, her irises growing a slight bit paler. I'll find you. I'll make us a perfect family. The sounds of a lone water droplet falling into the small puddle below it echoed throughout the silent hallways of the famed Tower of Aim. A sound that once would have been easily ignored and tossed aside in the whirlwind of bustling shinobi running errands for Pain and Conan, now rang in deafening softness. Such was the reign of loneliness, despair, loss, most importantly, to him, failure. The failure of his first mission, his ability to protect his client, and a newfound friend. "He's broken, emotionally," whispered Conan, as she leaned against the cold steel that formed one of the many walls around her and Pain. "He is. But, if he is to be the boy you claim he is, he will persevere through this crisis, and not only survive the damage, but thrive despite the suffering he has been presented with," replied the shinobi demigod, as he closed his eyes in concentration. It had been a while since anything had truly worried him to an emotional extent. It was strange. "Stop, Pain. Is this necessary? You know he understands our goal, so there's no actual need to make him sue. I am not making him go through this, to have him understand us, Conan," started the orange-haired man, his eyes locking onto the azure-haired female. Conan quickly grew silent, attempting to register his statement. "Wait, what do you mean? He needs to get through this, to erase the idea that he will always have a successful mission, never once losing a comrade or client. In this village, we can rarely afford the naive. But I would rather he grew out of this, with support, than have it crush him later on," replied Pain, sighing as he turned away. Conan blinked, inwardly smiling softly at the sight of her childhood friend. It hadn't been much by many people's standards, yet, she knew that for him to have shown worry and caution for the boy's well-being was a large step to where he once stood emotionally. Naruto was special, beyond those traditional definitions of a shinobi. "Is Naruto-san alright?" asked a small voice, causing Conan to turn her head around to glimpse at a young girl, one of her eyes covered by a large brown bang. "You are the girl that returned with Naruto-kun, am I right?" she responded, earning a nod from her. "Yeah, I came with him. He's my Oni-san," she loudly declared, surprising the Angel of Aim. "Oni-san? He saved me. I promised Grandpa that I would keep him company, because he helped me," she answered, her voice fading into silence at the mention of her grandfather. Conan could only share her head at the scene before her. "I wanted to create a world with Yahiko and Nagato. A world where humanity didn't have a need to wage war, or kill needlessly. So, why does it seem more impossible to reach with every passing moment?" "Your grandfather was Old Man Chen." "Yes, that's what everybody called him. I apologize for your loss, as—" "Don't apologize, it was my responsibility, anyway." Hearing the low and emotionless voice of a familiar blonde, Conan and Azami, the young girl, whirled around to see him. His voice, however, was slightly raspy and hoarse from the lack of use the past few days. "Naruto, we all fail missions, at some point or another." "Maybe so, but this was my first mission, Conan-sensei. It was my chance to prove that your training had paid off, and that I was worth something." As realization gradually dawned on her, Conan began understanding his intentions. Naruto had never been interested in the mission for his personal gains, but rather for the opportunity to prove his own worth. Basing that assumption off the details which he had given her up to that very moment, she could assume that it had been an after effect of the neglect his parents had given him. He had an inner desire to gain the approval and acknowledgement of those around him. Even when raised within a privileged home, you grew up possessing the same desire that many lesser privileged children dream of, Naruto. "It's not your fault, Oni-san," started Azami, taking Naruto's hand in her own smaller one. An act that shocked both the blonde and the present kunoichi. What? Azami merely smiled, a hint of sadness in her features. "Grandpa Chen knew what he was doing. I know I'm small, but I'm happy for him. Grandpa did what he did, for people he cared about." Feeling confusion set in, Naruto gave a soft and sad glance at his companion, before shaking his head. "So how do you do it?" "Do what? How do you stay happy, Azami? You just lost your GR. I just had to watch somebody it's just that For the first time in his life, having always been the one to held the voice of reason and calm, within his family in Konoha, Naruto found himself at a loss for words. He had never been the kind of person who could easily be tongue-tied, nor the one who'd choke on pressure. Then again, however, he had never been put in charge of his own mission, And now, his very first selection, and he had failed. I am sad, Aniki, more than you think. Then why are you s? But Grandpa Chen always told me that in our darkest times, we shouldn't dwell on our losses, but rather learn from the events we undergo. For an 8-year-old child, you are very emotionally mature, started Conan, breaking the tension between Azami and Naruto. Azami blinked a few times before nodding gently. When I was younger, I always wanted my grandpa to be happy again. It became natural to me, to be a person's voice of reason. It's still amazing that one so young as yourself could be this far ahead. The way I see it, the way the Yondaime once told us, it is better to die with a reason than to live with uncertainty of your purpose. Naruto merely froze, remembering his father having told him that years ago. Letting out a small smile, he nodded silently. Feeling a small sense of hope, Conan lost herself in thought at the girl's statement. She helped Naruto cheer up that easily. She speaks the truth, though. It's better to die for a reason worth sacrificing for than to live a life worth no reason at all. Before Azami could react, Conan crouched down in front of her, placing a hand on the girl's head, before leaning her forehead against hers. You're a very kind girl, Azami. You'll grow up to be a fine young woman. So I want you to make me a promise. Smiled the woman, much to Azami's sudden confusion and blush. Huh? Don't lose sight of who you are, and stay true to your beliefs. Nervously nodding her head furiously, Azami held on tighter to Naruto, her tiny 8-year figure, a mere diminutive form compared to Naruto's shinobi frame, even if he was only 11. Azami was never really the tallest girl. I promise. Conan nodded, before looking at Naruto, who now held a serious expression. Conan-sensei. Azami-chan, I want to apologize. Naruto-kun, look, it's not yo. No. Shocked at being cut in the midst of her sentence, Conan turned to glance at Naruto, who now bore a look of determination. What? I'm not apologizing for being sad, and yes, it is fault for how the mission turned out. I'm apologizing for the fact that I'm not training. What do you mean, Aniki? Asked Azami, perplexed at Naruto's outburst. I mean, walking away, towards the door that led away from the AIM council chamber, Naruto gave Conan and Azami one last look. I'm never going to fail another mission again. I'll become stronger, and defend the people here, even if it's against Konoha. With those final words, Naruto stepped out into the rainy streets of Omegakure, headed towards the only person that could grant the only request that could change his weaknesses. Pain. I can't give up, gasped Narumi as she held her injured left arm tightly. She didn't why, nor how, her arm had been injured in exact detail. Yet only the fact that her left shoulder burned horribly when she attempted to move it. Her forearm also hurt when she attempted to tighten her fist, or even move her hand. Narumi, please stop, now, ordered Minato, as he stood with his arms crossed. He didn't understand why Narumi had so suddenly developed an urge to train to this extent, yet he had a feeling it wasn't for the right reasons. He could label it a father's intuition. I'm going to bring back, Naruto. I'm going to make this family whole. Again. She groaned, wiping a small trail of dried blood from her lips. She couldn't deny it, when she had told her father to punch her at full strength. It was an error on her part. Narumi. Tell me, why do you have such a sudden interest on your brother? Asked Minato, curious as to why his daughter had grown attached to Naruto. It hadn't actually been so much the why as it had been when and how she had developed those feelings. He knew that she and Naruto never saw eye to eye, despite his lapse of judgment. So why was she so intent on training got him? He should have been happy, but something felt off. Narumi merely grunted before standing up correctly, much to her shoulder's pain. He's my Aniki, so I'm going to become stronger. I'll bring him back. Minato merely shook his head before walking over to the young girl, hugging her tightly in a flash. Narumi. Bringing Naruto back isn't just about strength. He whispered, closing his eyes, thinking about the conversation he had earlier with Kakashi. Kabuto couldn't have escaped those chakra-suppressing seals, nor the double-layered steel bars. Not without any outside help. And now that I come to think about it, why would Naruto have been anywhere near the detention cells? He shouldn't have been around the interrogation department to begin with. Honestly, the more I look at it, the more it seems to be that Naruto hell. Minato? Asked a voice, whom he immediately recognized to be Makoto's. Turning around, the blonde Hokage smiled and waved, as did Narumi. Makoto-san! Cried Narumi happily, much to Minato's pain, clutching his ear. Makoto simply gave her traditional warm, yet casual smile. Hey, Narumi-chan, and hello, Minato-kun, she replied, before giving the young girl a deep hug. Sasuke asked me to let you know that he's visiting Itachi later on, if you wish to join him. Although, I'd suggest you wash up a bit. Giggled the Uchiha matriarch softly, much to Narumi's embarrassment. Hi, she stuttered before running off, leaving the two adults alone. Minato could only watch his daughter's fading form, before glancing at the Uchiha female. So why did you come, Makoto? You know that after that I know perfectly what the deal was, Minato, but do you honestly expect Nate just forget what happened? Makoto, look, we can't I know what the implications are. Don't you think I'd realize what the ramifications would be, should Fugaku or Kushina find out? Snapped the Uchiha matriarch, as she stepped forth to lock gaze with the Hokage. What I meant was. Makoto. Look, and please understand, that what happened that might wasn't what you think. Wasn't it? Asked Makoto, as she placed her hands on his chest, the soft fabric unable to hide the lean and defined chiseled chest underneath. It was she liked the most about him, physically, that was. The slender, yet solid, muscular frame her possessed. The steel-cold blue eyes, that still managed to display an unwavering sense of care and love. It only served to paramount his external features. It all, however, began at his chest. The square, yet cut, pectoral muscles that connected his well-fitness biceps and triceps. It brought out a side of her that she had long since thought buried. He left her speechless, yet brought out the most intelligent and powerful sense of independence. She would feel her knees begin to buckle when she would witness him cast his signature sheepish grin. What are you doing? Before Minato could raise his question, he felt Makoto's lips press against his mouth, causing him to lose balance. Immediately, he felt his back hit the grass fields beneath them, as Makoto straddled his lap. He could already feel something coming to attention. Makoto, are you insane? Kushina could be coming along at any moment and I know, Minato. I love Kushi-chan. She's like the sister I never had, but us. I refused to give up what we had that night when you realized Naruto-kun wasn't captured. I gave you comfort, Minato. Makoto, I was drunk. Jiraiya-sensei and I had gone to a bar with Kakashi to help mellow out our th. That's not what you told me, cried Makoto, her voice cracking. Minato could only stare helplessly, as the strong and ever-graceful matriarch of the Uchiha began to break down before him. Makoto-chan, you said you loved me, you said I was beautiful, Minato. You promised that I'd never be alone, and that I'd always be able to count on you. Even if Kushina was your wife. She stuttered, tears gradually forming in her eyes, as she feebly hit Minato, her strength and will drained. I did. Letting out a quiet gasp, Makoto felt two powerful arms wrap around her waist, before she was pulled forward, kissing Minato. She didn't bother questioning what happened, as the blonde hoisted her up, causing her to ensnare her legs around his waist. She wasn't going to let this moment go to waste. Uzumaki Naruto. Do you know what you are asking me to do for you, right now? Have you the slightest idea of the implications that could follow should I grant you this request? Asked Pain, as he read over the documents the young blonde had given him just moments ago. I do, Pain-san, he replied quietly. It's one thing to simply state I'm going to train, but pain still scares me. And you sure about this? Because in brutal honesty, Naruto, I don't even know why I'm even considering agreeing to this. You're asking me to pull aside two shinobi prospects, who match specific qualities, in addition to any given Anbu operative with extended general knowledge in just about every known field? Do you have any idea, at just how ridiculous and downright stupid, it is for me to pull somebody like that aside? I wouldn't say it's that ridiculous, sir. It's been a while since I got to set foot outside these walls publicly, anyhow, stated a mysterious voice, as a figure stepped out from the shadows behind Pain. I'm shocked that you returned so early from the assignment you were handed, Shisui. Shisui? stuttered Naruto, falling backwards on the ground. Shisui raised an eyebrow before shaking his head. Even Naruto left? What is this? Trade Shinobi Week? I'm gone for a year or so, and Kumo gains the Fuma clan 2 days ago. Kirigakure began building an outpost near the Uzumaki ruins just yesterday. And now the Yondaime Hokage's son is a ninja for AIM. What's next? You want me to teach kids how to dance the waltz? I need you to take on Naruto as your personal apprentice for advanced shinobi arts. Shisui cursed his loud mouth. You haven't assigned him a sensei? Somewhat, yes. Konan is more of an acting mentor and guardian. Oh, tell me Shisui, I do have a question. What is it, Pain-san? What would you say, if we were to create a branch within AIM to select future prospects, and place them in specialized units? Crossing his arms in front of his chest, Shisui locked his gaze onto Naruto's, who shyly looked down to the ground. I've heard rumors that AIM had gained a raw talent a few months ago, though nobody ever mentioned it was the Yondaime Hokage's son. As for your question, it is debatable. Do you at least have a prototype team, with whom we can test this project? Shaking his head, Pain closed his eyes before looking out a window towards a small academy in the distance. Not at the moment, no. But I'm going to grant you permission to go to the academy, and test all the youngest recruits. Whomever you and Naruto deem worthy, shall be your subordinates. Naruto? You're granting him the right to selection? He's the heir to Namikaze Minato, and Uzumaki by blood, and a direct apprentice to Konan for the past few months. His debut mission was distasteful. But still to be expected, when 2 C-rank criminals are involved. I see. In that case, come Naruto. I have a series of tests for you. Standing up, the young blonde teen bowed, following Shisui, who was on his way towards the AIM training fields. I won't stay weak, I'm going to grow strong. Then I'm going to show all of Konoha just who the real golden child is. I'll get them back for placing Narumi above me. For the first time since her genin training days, Makoto was a mess. She didn't know what to do, or what to say. The only thing her mind could process, was to match the rhythm of each thrust, that came from the man that had her bent over against a tree in the middle of the night. Am I Min Minato? She moaned quietly, feeling the heat coming from his body, each time he touched her. It only grew worse, as he would follow every thrust with a slow, but deep, grinding motion. It simply served to bring her closer to losing her mind. Makoto. Hearing him groan her name, the Uchiha female turned to look at him. Within an instant, she gazed into his eyes, noting their glazed look as he made eye contact with her. Minato. She whispered, mentally berating herself for sounding like a schoolgirl that couldn't say anything other than a name. Picking her up, Minato slowly turned her around, causing Makoto to lift her legs up, placing her heels at his shoulders. She let out a small squeal as she felt his hands roam down to her rear for support. Place please, Minato, harder. Leaning into her neck, the Yondaime quickly stepped back to use the same tree as support. Da damn. I'm getting CL close. No, not now, she has to finish first. Finding a new sense of determination, Minato began thrusting deeper, lifting and slightly dropping Makoto. He quickly received the results he had been looking for, as the former kunoichi began gasping at each motion. Ooh. Feeling a burning sensation build in her stomach, Makoto bit her lip as she shook her head vigorously. No, please not yet, we just started, just a little bit longer. Latching herself tighter onto him, Makoto started to grind her hips, only adding onto the pleasure she was already giving him and herself. Before they could stop it, both Makoto and Minato shared one last kiss, before they both geeky the impeding climax. Mina too, Miko too. She didn't realize their mistake, until it was too late, the familiar hot liquid sensation already shooting through her, again and again. They didn't have protection, and Minato had just finished inside her. Gazing around once again, Narumi carefully took her time to examine Naruto's room once again. She really didn't know what it was about it that made her love it, but each time she came to visit, she found herself grabbing his shirts and smelling them. The scent Naruto had left behind was intoxicating. She never would admit to anybody except herself, but she had begun to keep and carry his signature goggles in order to remember his departure. Nobody touches his things but me. Nobody touches his things but me. Nobody touches his things but me. She knew most people would say that she was taking his loss too hard, But what did they know? What did they know about losing yet only person that kept you grounded to reality? I'll bring you back Naruto-kun. Then we can be happy together, and I'll make sure that you never feel bad again. Yo, Narumi? You okay? Asked Sasuke, as he stepped into the room from the window. Yep, time to go. Kakashi'll be waiting for us. She smiled, as the young Uchiha nodded before leaving. She's hiding something, he thought grimly, before casting a hidden look at the girl. Almost immediately he felt a pang of terror run through his spine. She was grinning, looking down at the robes in his arms. He took in the sight before him, serving only to further confuse him. However, these going to serve them in combat? They held no defense against any form of weapon, and to be honest, the dark brown robes, when placed with the black leather vest and boots, looked depressing. Hey, how the hell is this supposed to help us? A dull shuriken could tear these things up completely, griped Yuya, voicing Naruto and Yugo's opinions. Her outburst, however, caused Shisui to sigh, as he stood up, revealing similar clothing. You'll find that often in a shinobi's career, you will come across situations in which conventional armor only holds you back, such as if you were starting on an assassination mission, finished Naruto, only to be answered by a tense silence. Shisui could immediately tell that he wouldn't have to worry about teaching the three teens any lessons in reality. They already realized the prospect of having to kill another human being. Interesting, the only person I've seen to so readily accept that fact was it. I feel like some old hermit that lives in exile, in a giant desert, stated Jugo as he put on his own robes, while Naruto finished sliding on the leather vest. Yeah, let me tell you, Jugo. I'm going to be some legendary chosen one, who's eventually going to be turned evil, by being manipulated by some evil force, who uses my own loved ones against me, added the blonde, as he brushed his hair, allowing it to return it to its natural wild self. You two are dumbasses. Talented dumbasses, but still a pair of idiots, replied Yuya, her arms crossed as she tapped her foot. You three are hopeless at times, you know that? Declared Shisui, shaking his head before looking over a small scroll. What are you thinking, Pain? Are these three seriously as promising as you say? I was confident when I saw Naruto's abilities, but they're still young and rather easygoing. So we have a C-rank mission already? I thought new squads only got D ranks, asked Yuya, who was leaning behind the Uchiha. Along with Naruto and Jugo, the trio were eagerly reading the contents, much to the man's surprise. What? Hey, you aren't given proper clearance to read these documents. As a matter of fact, how did you three even sneak up on me like that? He asked, curious as to how the genin had managed the feat. He was a former Konoha Anbu operative, after all. How? Replied Yuya, as if he had grown a second head. It wasn't anything? Continued Naruto, sinking his words to his redhead teammates. We simply walked up behind you, finished Jugo, who was staring in a perplexed manner at their sensei. Beautiful, either they're diamonds in the rough, or I'm losing my touch. I hope you're right about this, Pain. So, what's the first mission, Shisui-sensei? Questioned the redhead, as the Uchiha took a final glance at the mission report. We're meeting at a rendezvous point, near the border of Wind Country, with a contact of mine. So prepare for a possible attack by low-level shinobi. Possibly simple mercenaries, if anything. Wait, attack? I thought C-rank missions didn't involve any danger of combat? Asked Naruto, receiving nods in agreement from his teammates. Shisui smiled inwardly a tiny bit, relieved they at least agreed on something. Under regular standards, yes, that would be the case. But AIM implemented its own systems, standard class and operative class. Operative ranked missions pose greater dangers than their standard class counterparts. That being said, a good idea would be, C-rank operative missions are essentially B-rank standard class mission that must be taken with complete precaution. All operative missions, regardless of their rank, are politically focused operations. So every mission we go on will tie into the relationship with other villages, stated Yuya, summarizing Shisui's answer as best she could. That's a crude generalization, yes. But they can extend further than just villages and cages, they can extend up to the daimyo of a given country. He added, forcing the trio to slightly pale. Shouldn't we be training for this, sensei? You mean we're getting literally tosses into this without preparing? Stuttered Yuya, her bravado quickly fading. Naruto, however, closed his eyes, deep hidden memories resurfacing to his mind, from his last mission. This wouldn't be the first time that he'd be on a mission involving possible combat, his last one being a testament to it. Nonetheless, it would only be his second, and with the overall lack of experience, it could turn ugly within given moments. I don't get it, though. Why would Pain send us out on this mission? I mean, sure, we've been doing basic exercises and Shisui's helped us with the foundations on martial arts and chakra enhancement. But this suddenly, what's going on? Trip in itself would normally take a week, however, since the meeting will take place a month from now, we will be traveling at a slow pace. There are 4 AIM outposts along the way, so we will stay a week at each one. There I will train you in preparation for the mission. Letting out a sigh of relief, the redhead nodded, taking some comfort in knowing she could at least train for it. Jugo let out a soft grin, before pumping his fist in the air. Woo, I'm going to prove to everybody that I can be an awesome ninja. That way nobody can say I'm a useless fatty, he yelled, causing his female teammate to roll her eyes. Naruto, on the other hand, chuckled quietly, admiring his optimism. Hey, I like him, he's not such a letdown. And Naruto, Conan wishes to know how your assignment is going, stated Shisui, drawing a loud groan from the blonde, as he remembered their previous meeting with the azure-haired angel of AIM. Flashback. Not bad Naruto, not bad at all. You've been making good progress, despite the little time you're given to actually practice your technique. Smiled Conan, as Shisui helped the gasping blonde teen to his feet. Naruto didn't have a mirror, but he could easily tell he looked like a wreck. He could feel the sweat that clung to his body mixing with the dirt and grime from the ground he had repeatedly been thrown into. In addition, his mesh shirt and vest were torn all around, to where they were only barely managing to cling to his body. Thanks. What was the point of me getting my butt handed to me on a platter? He asked, his knees trembling from the beating he took in their so-called friendly spar. I needed to take notes on how you were doing with the fighting technique you told me you were creating, so that I could pinpoint any signs of weakness or flaws in the form. Okay, so let's see, she whispered, before mumbling something to herself, at a volume neither Shisui nor Naruto could hear. Standing up from large boulder she had been leaning against, Conan took a few glances at the notepad, before walking up to Naruto. Giving him a curt nod, Naruto slowly got into his stance, his feet shoulder-length apart, before he turned slightly to an angle, his left hand outstretched in a loose manner. He held his right hand in the same direction, though it was kept slightly bent. So, what did you find? Questioned Shisui, eyeing his student's technique. He knew it was wrong, but he was tempted on activating the Sharingan to copy his form. He knew it was still rough and unrefined, but he had personally experienced its effectiveness in person. First of all, the form, which has yet to be named, relied heavily on Naruto's strength and agility to overpower your own attacks, in a series of counters. An example was when you tried to sidekick the boy. Naruto threw himself backwards, lowering the damage received, but managed to grab your leg in the process. From there, he used a combination of his strength and agility, coupled with the momentum of your attack, to spin you directly into the wall that was behind you too. Now, naturally, given your experience, you were able to stop yourself from crashing, but the fact remains he was able to counter your movement. Shisui nodded before studying Naruto, who was still in his stance. So, Naruto's form focuses on countering hits? No, more than simple hits, it creates openings in your own attacks while using your own force against you, by actually taking them, rather than entirely avoiding them. What do you mean? When Naruto reversed that kick of yours, most people would have ducked the attack, or attempted to dodge it in any manner. Instead, he simply lessened the blow, using your momentum against you, similar to a mirror reflecting a beam of light back towards you. Not only does he reflect it, but it hits you with the same amount of power you used initially, if not slightly more. So, by using the aggression in the opponent's attacks, he puts himself in positions where the damage is simply reduced, but allows him to simultaneously redirect the enemy's physical strength in any direction he wants. Precisely, although it comes with its own drawbacks, also. And they are? The fact that despite him reducing the pain from incoming hits, he still receives a portion of them. And even a stone wall will eventually crumble. The main this works for him, more than anybody his age, is due to his unnatural pain tolerance. Were it a genin his age, they would have been on the ground in less than a fifth of the time he lasted. What about flaws in the foundations? Any weaknesses that an enemy ninja could exploit? Yes, and that would be his footwork. Wait, how? I was watching that the entire match. The manner in which he used his feet as both anchors and a means by which to swiftly move in a constant flow were rather impressive for a form that has yet to be refined. That is both a strength to the form, but also a weakness. The footwork was a solid supplement in the defensive aspect, but when it came at him attacking you without need to counter you, his movements were much slower than when he was on the defensive. Not only that, but it also used the smooth surface of the level ground for balance. The few moments when you two stepped onto the less even terrain, Naruto-kun quickly began having to double his efforts on maintaining that same footwork, which in turn caused him to focus less on countering as efficiently. Hey, so, why am I in my pose? Can I get out of my stance? Asked Naruto, his legs tiring from having been in the same constant position. Huh? Oh right, sorry, Naruto-kun, about your stance. It needs to have more flexibility in order for you to optimize your reaction timing. The rigidity of how you are currently standing delays your ability to react accordingly to any strike that is launched against you. Oh, so why did you need me to spar with Shisui-sensei? Konan-chan, couldn't you just have fought me yourself? Asked the blonde, causing the kunoichi and Uchiha to chuckle. Haha, because kid, I can help with your style, by copying it. Raising an eyebrow, Naruto crossed his arms, casting his sensei a dirty glance. You just want to copy my style, sensei. Cheater, you get the Sharingan. If I had that, I could copy any moves and fighting forms. He griped, sighing in utter exasperation. For the first time in what was to be years, Shisui did the only thing that he had been previously incapable of even imagining. He shook his head in disagreement. Naruto, believe me. With the price that comes with this Kekkei Genkai, you're better off like you are. Too many people become arrogant and begin to turn to complacency. But the Sharingan is so powerful? How could it be a bad thing? You can copy the opponent's movements. It's the most practical Kekkei Genkai that I can imagine, besides pay. Our leader's ability. Trust me, Naruto. Never get these eyes, okay? They're a curse to me and my clan. Never cripple yourself by coming to rely on one single trick. But, I promise, sensei. Good, now go practice your stance, and remember Konan's advice. Also, have you come to name your style, yet? Sinaru Gyakuten, sensei. Sinaru Gyakuten? I like that, kid. Holy reversal. End flashback. Wait a moment, you mean Naruto has been training even more than us? That's not fair, sensei. Yelled to Yuya, pointing at the offending blonde teen behind her. That's why we're heading out a month early, to have you two catch up to Naruto's progress. Wait, sensei. Why are we so rushed in this? I know Pain-sama wants to create an elite task force of shinobi, but isn't this still a bit too much? Asked Jugo, to Naruto's agreement. That's right, it is, but for good reason. What's that? The Chunin exams, which were originally meant to be hosted at Konoha a year ago, were delayed and are being conducted in 3 months in the village. So, aren't we being jumped directly to Chunin, regardless? What's the point of us participating? We're not going to participate, though, are we? Interrupted Naruto, earning the Uchiha's confirmation. That's right, Naruto. We're sending in 2 teams of genin, Team 8 and Team 14 to the exams, while you 2 of you will act as personal bodyguards, while a 3rd member continues on as a spy to detect flaws in the defenses of Konoha. Specifically, one clan particular. Wait, are we planning on kidnapping? Asked Yuya, a look of disgust on her face. Naruto and Jugo weren't casting any happier glances, however. The career of a shinobi isn't always pretty, kids, and at times, you may just find that you'll be the villains in the eyes of others. Remaining in total silence, the 3 shinobi in training simply stood there, taking in the objectives of what their second mission would be. Narumi, are you in here? Asked Minato, as he opened the door to his daughter's room. Yeah, I'm in here, Daddy. How'd I look? Smiled Narumi, as she zipped up her Chunin vest. It had been only a few months since the day that Naruto had left the village, but if there had been things to change, it had been her work ethic. Only since then had Narumi taken tutelage under Jiraiya, her own father's former master. You look pretty nice, Narumi-chan. He chuckled, as Kushina followed suit behind him, smiling softly at her daughter. Haha, my baby girl is already a chunin, and she's still not even 13. I think she might just beat Kakashi-chan's record. She yelled in pride, clenching her fists as Narumi and Minato broke into a cold sweat. Why yeah, Ka-chan, chuckled Narumi, scratching her head sheepishly as she broke into a foxy grin, alongside her dad. Oh, and Minato, that reminds me. Fugaku needs to talk to you. It's Miko-chan. He says she's been acting strange lately, and that she, well, has been going through mood swings. Plus she does look like she gained a few pounds. I think she might be going through a phase. It's almost like she's pregnant, stated Kushina, drawing a cold sweat from the blonde Hokage, who was now blushing badly. His normally calm face was now contorted in a combination of fear and apprehension. Karma does have a habit of turning the bad one commits into an even further horrible retribution. It is my own fault for having done what I did. Hey, Dad. So when can I go on my own first solo mission? Come on, Naruto-kun would have been doing his own assignments by now. I need to get serious if I want to find him and bring him back, exclaimed Narumi, her fiery red hair almost glowing with excitement. Huh? What? Already? Naru-chan, I know you're the most promising prospect of your class, but even Sasuke-kun admitted it'd be a better idea to hold off on single-man mission for you too, stuttered Kushina, her husband held speechless by their daughter's bold exclamation. Nah, that's Sasuke, though. He's more of a leader. I'm the soldier. I want to get in the fight and end it already. Naruto-kun isn't going to come back if I'm constantly depending on other people. I need to get stronger. Give me a B-rank mission. I'll do it in half the allotted time limit. She laughed, causing the two adults to sweat nervously. She's still just as stubborn as she was when Naruto-kun was here. Oh, Narumi-chan. For the skills you possess, you're still too overly eager. Narumi, you can't just request a B-rank solo mission, as if it was a D rank. There are proper Yeah, Dad, I know. Proper protocols that need to be followed, and guideline that must be heeded with the most utter precaution. Honestly, though, what's the big deal? I held off Itachi-san for almost 5 whole minutes, doesn't that show where I stand? I bet I could take on all Konoha's Genin and Chunin one-on-one and I'd beat every single one. Grinned Narumi, before Minato tossed her a serious scowl. Narumi, Itachi was going easy on you during your field exam. He was not giving TTHE match everything he had. Had he done so, you would have been dead within moments after I called the start. Besides, Naru-chan, what will you do if you are forced to kill an enemy? Are you even to the point that you would take another's life? Asked Kushina, praying her daughter did not give her a bad answer. Come on, Ka-san, I won't kill anybody. I'm going to bring back Naruto-kun. He wouldn't come back if his sister was a mass murderer. Besides, it's wrong to kill a human being. I'm going to return my Oni-chan and then I'll become the greatest Hokage ever. I'll bring world peace to the villages, so that other people don't have to lose their family ever again. Smiled the young girl, drawing exasperated sighs from her family. Child, you're still as hard-headed as always. Shaking his head, Minato shrugged before casting a glance at his wife, who was biting her lip. Alright, I will give you a solo mission. Yes. Widening her eyes, Kushina turned to face her husband, only to find him casting a soft and reassuring smile at her. But it will be a C rank. What? But those missions don't have any action at all, screamed Narumi, much to Kushina's relief. For a moment, Minato, I thought you would actually give her a B rank, she giggled nervously. Come on, Kushi-chan, give me some credit, he grinned, his face blushing. I'm not that bad of a Hokage, am I? Yo, Minato, cried a loud voice from outside, earning the blonde's curiosity. Walking towards the front door, the Namikaze Uzumaki family took a peek to see who had called his name, only to find Fugaku waving at him, in a fully outfitted shinobi uniform. Hey, Fugaku? What's with the uniform? I thought you were on temporary leave, asked Minato, in confusion as to what was going on. Yeah, I was. But that changed, since this morning. Itachi and I are heading out for an emergency recon mission, though it could turn bad. Huh? So why not tell me? I can call up a squad of Anbu to help you. I appreciate the offer, friend, but This is strictly Uchiha clan business, so anybody aside from you, the Hokage, would be forbidden from knowing. Uchiha. Business? Wait, is this about him? Nodding, Fugaku cast the blonde a distant look before turning away. Shisui was reported having been seen on the outskirts of a megacure territory. Any group larger than 3 shinobi would be instantly suspicious. The fact that Itachi is also well known already puts us at risk, but Itachi is the only available ninja we have that can stand toe-to-toe with Shisui in combat. Fugaku. Shisui is no laughing matter. Please, wait until tomorrow, so that Kakashi may return from his own mission, he'll be able to I wish we could, Minato. But, as it is, we are behind. We can't spare a single day. I apologize for the last-minute notice, but we have no choice. I understand. Fugaku, take caution. As it stands, Shisui's defect left us undermanned. We can't lose another Uchiha. When Shisui defected and abandoned the village, he massacred nearly the whole Uchiha village. Your family and a few others are that's left. I'll be fine, Minato. I know what the effects were and still are, whispered Fugaku before walking towards the village gates. Minato. What is it? Asked the blonde, only to see Fugaku grinning confidently. We wouldn't be so short-handed in the future if you had simply promised Naruto to one of the Uchihas like I suggested you do. Blushing, Minato shook his head before growling in a joking manner. If I did that, then all of them would be walking permanent limps after their honeymoon, he yelled, before being punched upside his head by Kushina, who now bore a feral-looking scowl on her face. Baka, you do not talk about our son like he is some marriage conduit at your POLOTICAL disposal. She roared, causing Fugaku to run away quickly. Naya, I pity the fool that ever marries a redhead. ACHHOOO. Sneezed Naruto as he sat down in his chair while dinner was being prepared. Shut it, dumbass, geez. I swear if you even sneeze anywhere near the food, I'm pouring the boiling water down your pants. Growled Tayuya as she carefully stirred the pan. Idiot, I swear he's going to be the death of me. Why am I even cooking for him? All he did was say that my red hair was cute on me, stupid. Stupid. Oh well, I have to admit the blonde hair is kinda the way it's naturally soft but spiky. Achoo. Yo, you okay? Sasuke-kun? Asked Narumi, as she sat next to the raven-haired boy, who nodded. Yeah, must have been the heat or something, though, he replied, as he took his spot in between Narumi and Karen, the girl who had just recently been adopted by the Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen. I bet he was up all night training, again. Giggled Karen, smacking the BAKC of the Uchiha's head. Ow, I was not, actually, yeah I was. Told y'all. Oh, Naru-chan, would you please pass the chopsticks? Asked Karen, as Narumi handed her the small pack. It feels good having friends. So, would you care to explain just how exactly this is going to work? Asked Karui. The dark-skinned kunoichi crossed her arms behind her head. Just shut up and stop asking stupid questions, Karui. Maybe if you will pay attention, I wouldn't be explaining myself for the 7th time. Growled the Yondaime Hokage, shrugging the young girl's side before nodding. Taking the chance to finally be able to speak without his young apprentice butting in, cleared his throat. Due to our tension with Suna and Konoha, we have decided to seize the opportunity to negotiate a treaty with AIM, in order to strengthen our tactical standpoint. Okay, I know that I'm not a general or anything, but what good is AIM? They aren't a recognized great village, nor do they possess any sort of extraordinary shinobi. We don't even know who their leader is. It's not the shinobi that makes them so valuable, Karui. It's their location. Their location? They are located directly between the surrounding great villages. Whoever takes control of AIM would be removing whatever border separates us as a whole. I guess that would be a gain on our part. But, how do you know a megacure will accept the treaty? Because we'll be offering a political marriage to one of our finest kunoichi. Oh, poor Samui. Well, at least it's for a strong cause. I meant you, Karui. Yeah, she'll be devast. Wait, what? You know, I always did hate these type of missions, man. I don't like that whole quiet and calm scouting vibe. It creeps me out, horribly. Sighed a young Chunin, as he ran a hand through his spiky brown hair. They had been sent on a simple recon mission, with the objective of heading to a small town, Fujinami, outlying just inside Rain Country's borders. Normally, the town itself would have warranted no attention, when reporting its monthly progress to the Omegacure Shinobi and Public Relations Council. It was that very fact that had garnered them concern. They hadn't reported, nor even sent representatives, nearly 2 weeks behind schedule. AIM had already sent a 4-man team only a week prior to the deadline. Calm down, Yuki, you're being such a coward about this. It's always this superstitious nonsense you spout that scares you. Haven't you ever heard of that placebo theory? Replied his partner, an older shinobi, whose face was covered in a light stubble. His face was outlined by a rather prominent jawline, although a scar traced just along his right cheek. A testimony to the constant fighting AIM shinobi were to face, even as Chunin. Ju-san, are you always this critical? Seriously, you should start putting more weight on instincts, not reasoning, stated Yuki as he shook his head. Yeah, well, kid, when you see the things that I've seen in my time as a vete. Noticing the sudden pause in his partner's sentence, Yuki glanced to the side, halting his own search through the forest they had been walking through. Hey, Jyu-san, why did you Santo? What happened? He stuttered, falling to his knees, as he took in the terrifying sight before the duo. No more than a half-mile ahead of their position, atop the hills surrounding the designated town, stood the remains of said town. Buildings that they knew were once shops, houses, and even shinobi posts, were now laying on fire and in heaps of rubble. Walls that were meant to have provided protection, currently fell to the ground as if lifeless marionettes. It was as if an army had raised it. What? But how? Asked Yuki, his voice cracking as if he was a teenage boy. No. But we only sent a squad of soldiers here, not 3 weeks ago. Whispered Jyu, as the elder shinobi glanced around, hoping to find even a single witness. Unfortunately, he could see no more than the burning ruins and crumbling structures that were in obvious sight. He would have to draw closer and inspect the surroundings in person. Yuki, get up, he growled, a scowl gradually spreading across his face, as his fellow Chunin partner nodded solemnly. As he rose to his feet, Yuki and Jyu each heard a small rustle to their left, only a dozen or so meters away, drawing an instant reaction from the trained ninja, each pulling out a kunai respectively. Who's there? By law of Pain-sama, you're to come out and surrender yourself. Shouted Yuki, his body beginning to tense up as his hands shook ever so slightly. Is that? Yuki, check it out. That isn't what I think it is it? Asked Jyu, as he cautiously drew nearer to the source of sound. Yuki simply took a few steps forward, assuring himself that he stayed just a step or two ahead of Jyu. They could both see what looked like to be a slumped-over townsman who was asleep. Jeez. How the hell does anybody sleep through this? The stench of burning concrete is bad enough to wake me Jyu. Stuttered Yuki, as he came just near enough to the villager to see the state of the body clearly. What is it, Yuki-san? What are they doing? And no. What happened to them? Asked Jyu, as he stumbled backwards, holding back the urge to vomit. The body, which was slumped over a tree, was badly burnt, but had obvious signs of having been maimed and eaten, as the flesh had been torn off and ripped, with what could have been jagged teeth. Who could have done this? Asked Yuki, as he looked around. Jyu merely shook his head, unable to say a word in response. Finish it, over, hit it. Shouted voices in the distance, drawing the shinobi's attention. Over there, Jyu-san, we need to find out what happened. Declared Yuki, receiving a nod from the recovering Jyu as he stood up. Within a single motion, the two Chunin leapt forward, rushing to the ruined town, where the voices had originated. They would find out what had happened. Let's see. First step is to draw the chakra into your hands. Allow it to collect, as if filling a balloon with air. Closing his eyes, Naruto drew in a deep breath, before sliding his feet outwards to should-width distance. Lifting both hands, he clasped the bottom of both palms in an outward direction, aiming at a distant tree. Gradually, he began drawing chakra from his body into his hands. Okay. Nay next. Push it. Who push it outwards. All allow it to become a dense man manifestation of CH chakra. He groaned, as he began feeling a heavy sense of weight form on his arms. He could almost see the wind around his hands begin to twist and contract, as the chakra had begun pressurizing itself around his chakra. Within moments, he could hear a dull roar, as the chakra had become a visible, swirling, uneven ball of energy. He could have sworn, the bones in his forearms had creaked from the pressure and force being used in simply keeping the chakra in place. Then K keep. Con control. Do no not. Unleash the attack, until. The right moment. He growled, feeling the strain of the held attack taking its toll upon his body, and even chakra coils within his muscles. He had to hold it, just a few more seconds. Come on. Yo, you blasted, chakra. 10, 9, 8. He could begin to see the look on his face, once he managed to succeed in mastering the new jutsu that he himself had created. Before he could realize what was going on, however, Naruto felt his knees buckle, as he fell onto the floor, the chakra still collecting in his arms. The density of the attack was causing his body, and the surrounding ground, to collapse from the sheer force. 7, 6, 5. He could sense the weight building continuously, only serving to produce more internal stress on his muscles. He knew he wouldn't be able to hold it more than a few seconds if he could manage that alone. 4, 3. He was almost there, no more than a moment's distance away from success. He couldn't fail, he wouldn't allow himself the humiliation of knowing that Narumi would hold more power and skill than him. He refused to fail, and permit his Narumi form overshadowing him than she already had. And no. I can't. I won't. Let some pompous and spoiled child beat me, he snarled, a newfound sense of power suddenly igniting itself in his mind. Seconds be damned, he would hold the attack for as long as he could, regardless of time limit. I won't let her become stronger, I refuse to be cast as a failure. Let's see who's the final one laughing. When I beat you. Narumi, roared Naruto, as he pushed out one last burst of chakra, causing the amount he had previously collected to rocket outwards directly at the tree ahead of him. Far behind him, hidden behind a tree and unbeknownst to the blonde teen, was a dark-haired man, who had been keeping a close on the blonde-haired boy's private training session. What are you doing? Uzumaki Naruto? He asked himself, in a rhetorical manner. He had been watching the boy over the past few hours, honing his unique taijutsu style, and even observed as he developed his ability with chakra control. Never before, with the exception of a select few elite shinobi, had he witnessed anybody focus such effort into mere training. He had watched, and stood by at a distance, as the child had not only broken what should have been physical limitations, but shattered what many would have labeled their point of exhaustion. While there were few Anbu within the AIM ranks, those who were, had been keenly trained by Konan-san and Shisui-senpai personally in chakra detection to a mildly skilled point. Neither Konan nor Shisui were natural chakra sensors, so they could only teach what they knew themselves. Yet here, he had sensed the boy deplete his chakra twice. Yet by a defiance of nature, had managed to draw out a reserve seemingly out of pure willpower. Not once, but twice. What is this kid made of? It's like he doesn't know what reality is. He simply defies the laws of chakra exhaustion, as if they were academy rules for children. Meanwhile, Naruto collapsed onto the hard ground, gasping for air, as he felt a horrible and throbbing pain spread throughout his arms. Unable to lift himself up, due to him not even managing to lift his own arms, he decided to simply lay down there, helplessly watching as the blast of chakra he had launched crashed into the tree, only to do nothing. All that flash and noth. Crack, with a resounding explosion, and a screeching cracking sound, the tree's trunk, which had been unharmed on the outside, exploded, shooting splinters and wooden debris in all directions. Namely at his general area. No, shouted the blonde, as he hoisted himself up in a rush of adrenaline, sprinting as fast as his tired legs could carry him. He needed to find cover before the various wooden remains turned him into a pincushion. Is this what it's come down to, Pain-sama? Asked a young red-haired woman, as he cast aside a fox-like Anbu mask. She seemed familiar, yet a silhouette covered the larger portion of her body, shrouding her true identity. "It is, Kitsune-san. I see you came alone, correct? You do need any help, nor backup?" asked a tall man, whom could only be assumed to be Pain. The young woman nodded, before dropping into an offensive stance. "I do not need the aid of my comrades, in order to take down scum, such as you. Surrender, and I will see to it that you and your subordinates are tried fairly, and with mercy, Pain." Letting out a bitter laugh, the man known as Pain airily shook his head, before sitting down in a chair nearby. He was facing a large window that overlooked what seemed to be an industrialized village that was burning down. The sounds of fighting and war cries could be heard through the shattered remains of the glass opening. "I believe that would be out of the question, Kitsune-san," he replied, earning a sigh from the young woman. "Then so be it, Pain-sama. You are hereby under arrest upon the order of the United Villages Coalition, for crimes against the villages of Konohagakure no Sato and Sanagakure no Sato. By martial law of the villages, you will be detained and executed if deemed necessary." "Oh, will I? You seem to believe we are alone?" asked Pain, not even turning to look at the Anbu female named Kitsune, as a young man calmly strode between her and Pain. His hair was styled into a faux hawk, his sunshine yellow locks swaying softly with the wind that came from the shattered window. "Kitsune-san. What a coincidence, meeting you here. Yo-yu? What are you doing here? You're on his side?" she asked, confused at the turn of events. It was clear the young man was somebody she trusted or was close to. "Me? Simply enjoying the view of you crushing my home village. I must say, Tad don't it help much with my mod." "What do you mean, home village? You're supposed to be with Konoha," shouted the girl, much to the blonde's laughter. Konoha," he gasped, howling in mirth. "You betrayed us." "Betrayed you? No. I would call it bringing justice upon you," he growled, as he began to walk towards her, each step bringing more menace than the last. Naruto. Kushina, yelled Minato, grasping and attempting to hold his thrashing wife, as she began to spasm in their bed. They had been quietly asleep, although in truth, he had been staring at the ceiling, pondering what to do with the upcoming meeting with the Yondaime Raikage tomorrow. Such was the life of the Hokage, though that process of thought was quickly and violently interrupted by the distraction of his wife's nightmares. He had been given no warning, when Kushina's fist connected painfully with his jaw, knocking him off their bed. He could only barely make sense of what she was saying, but he could hear through her pained moans, bits of, "young girl," "pain," "fight," "burning village," "man," "menacing." It was far more than enough to warrant his worry and concern. "Kushina, wake up, please, wake up," he pleaded, shaking her gently, and even resorting to splashing cold water on her face. All to no avail. What's going on?" shouted voices from downstairs, as Jiraiya and Tsunade both came rushing in at a frantic pace. They could watch as Kushina continued to convulse in Minato's arms, before Tsunade grabbed the redhead, placing her hands on the woman's temples. "Minato, Jiraiya, go to the guest room and fetch me Y supplies and the chakra seals right next to the bedpost. Now," she barked, causing both shinobi to nod and dash out of the room. The blonde Sannin could only sit and watch as she carefully put Kushina in a state of unconscious sleep. No dreams were better than terrifying nightmares, any day. "So what was that about, Minato? Kushina looked like she was being plagued by a demon, or something," asked Jiraiya, as he watched Tsunade place one final seal on Kushina's forehead. "That should keep her brain from forming any sort of dreams, for the moment," murmured the blonde Kunoichi, as she straightened up. "Thank you, Tsunade-sama. I don't know, Jiraiya-sensei. It never came up until a few months ago, but then it wasn't as bad. She would have a few sleepless nights, yet that was all." "So she only recently began having these moments?" questioned Tsunade, her curiosity growing. Minato nodded, before closing his eyes. "Yes, Tsunade-sama, could be a heavy conscience," stated Jiraiya, earning looks of confusion from his two fellow shinobi. "What do you mean, Jiraiya?" asked Tsunade. "It started right around the time Naruto was last seen, is what Minato said just now. Kushina could be having nightmares, due to the possibility that she may be casting herself a large amount of blame for failing to find him. Call it a mother's regret, I suppose," sighed the white-haired man, crossing his arms. So she won't ge better until Naruto-kun returns? Asked Minato, his voice soaked in concern. Jiraiya nodded. Or until she finds peace. One or the other would be the only answer, added the man. Minato sighed, rubbing his face with his hands in exasperation. So much for being a good family man. This would bite him in the ass when atonement time came. He just knew it. Well, that wasn't the result I expected, whispered Naruto as he panted for air. He could his lungs sting with each breath he took, most of it due to the fact he had forced his every muscle fibers to run during that escapade. After all, how was he simply going to stand by and allow a wave of incoming debris injure him? Man, that was one awesome jutsu. But the charging time and the strain. I'd have to be at full strength to be able to pull it off, without exhausting myself. I'd say it used up about 40% of my entire chakra reserve. Not bad, kid, not bad, stated Shisui as he stood by a tree just beside Naruto. Huh? Shisui-san? He asked, plopping down on the ground, as he continued to observe the smoldering remains of the innocent tree. The Uchiha nodded, before glancing at the same object that his blonde student had so mutilated. Well, at least we have no worries over your new technique lacking raw power. Although, the after effects could be more desirable. He sighed, taking in the sight of Naruto, watching the blonde struggle for breath and simple movement from his body. It was obvious his training sessions and practice had taken their toll on his physical being. He could only imagine the strain he had placed on his chakra coils. Yeah, I guess I overdid it a little, huh? Gasped Naruto, laughing softly. Laying down, he groaned happily as the gentle soil and grass relaxed his body. So what's your motivation, Naruto? Asked Shisui, catching the blonde off guard. What? You motivation? Why do you train so hard? Do you seek simple power? Is there somebody you wish to protect? What is it that pushes you to test your limits like you do? My limits? Shisui nodded. Yes, how do you draw the willpower to actually train so diligently? You rarely take a break, even less put your sessions on hold. I know Jonin, who have less focus than you. Well, Naruto-kun? To be the shinobi, my family never imagined me to be, replied Naruto, giving Shisui a blank stare. It made the Uchiha feel somewhat awkward. What do you mean, the one they never imagined you to be? My family never truly bothered with training me. Ah, yes, that. Reports said, Uzumaki Narumi was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, correct? Your sister? Yes. Scratching his chin, Shisui let out a small sigh, before shaking his head. He could give a rough guess as to what the consequences would have been, with a sibling housing a Biju. So, starting with the fact that Jinchuriki required extensive training in order to control the malevolent chakra, they would thus mandate special guardianship. That would obviously mean Minato and Kushina, who were the legal caretakers, had been placing more and more focus on Narumi's training, rather than evenly distributing their attention and affection to both children. Ironic. Is she your motivation? To outdo your sister? To display how they made a mistake in giving her all the attention? No. Taken by surprise at the blonde's simple answer, Shisui raised an eyebrow. In all honesty, he by no means had expected that abrupt answer in such a short time frame. Why you don't? Shaking his head, Naruto leaned back against the trunk before closing his eyes. Letting out a sigh, the young Uzumaki smiled softly, almost as if reminiscing on a cherished memory from long ago. I can't really explain it, Shisui-san. But I could care less about their opinions of me. I only care for the present, and not the past. I'm going to grow stronger, and I'm going to be the greatest shinobi to have ever lived. Nodding, the Uchiha let a small smile slowly spread across his face, as he took in what the blonde had said. He's much smarter and wiser than most people older than him. Many would be so focused on their anger and the prospect of revenge. Uzumaki Naruto. Just what are you destined for? So how did training go for you, Narumi-chan? Smiled Ayame, as the ramen waitress served the red-haired girl her fifth bowl of noodles. It was awesome, Ayame-chan. Kakashi-sensei taught us how to properly begin sensing chakra levels. He said it took months, before we could improve to a point where we could sense more than a few dozen meters, however. She replied, somewhat gloomily towards the end. Really? Well, Look at the bright side, Narumi-chan. You have a challenge to overcome. You should see it as a hurdle to motivate you, rather than a point that you haven't reached. Huh? A hurdle? I guess. I see it. Yeah. Thanks Ayame-chan. You know how to cheer me up, grinned Narumi, scratching her head sheepishly. I need to get stronger, and become the greatest Hokage ever, if I want to bring back Naruto-kun. Somehow, I figured you would be here, Narumi. Sighed a voice, in more of an innocent manner, as she turned around to see the source. It was Sarutobi Hiruzen, the former Sandaime Hokage. Oji-san, she exclaimed, rushing to hug him tightly. We well. Aren't you happy? He gasped, rubbing his sides in somewhat mild soreness. The girl clearly had a bit of a resemblance to a young Tsunade's strength. He would make it a point to instill patience into her, for the sake of all young men's safety. Yep, Oji-san, I learned how to sense chakra today. So did Sakura-chan and Sasuke-kun. She grinned, much to Hiruzen's slight surprise. You did? Well, congratulations, Narumi-chan. Most shinobi don't learn that until a later part in their careers. It seems your team is incredibly talented. He chuckled, ordering a bowl for himself. Narumi nodded proudly, before looking down at her own bowl. My dream is to be even stronger than Tusan. To be an even greater Hokage than the Yondaime, she whispered. Hiruzen could only stare in mild awe, as he took in the sight before him. So you wish to become an even more legendary shinobi than your father? He asked, a small spark of pride igniting in his chest. Yes. I'm going to become the greatest kunoichi and shinobi that ever existed. She smiled warmly, earning a pat on the back from the famed shinobi. You'll be a great Hokage, Narumi-chan, you will. But still, you should remember that being a Hokage is not simply about knowing how to fight and how to defeat ninja, he added, drawing the girl's attention. I know, Oji-san. That's why I've been spending time with Shikamaru-kun and his family. They've been giving me tips on how to play shogi, and how it can be used in planning for fights and combat tactics. Oh, and Tusan is also teaching me about how council meetings go, so I'm also learning that. I can actually make up to 6 kage bunshin. So I'm having them study for a little bit at a time, so that I can still train and not get overloaded on information. She beamed, causing the elderly ninja to stare at her in pride. She's only so young, yet she's already pacing herself, and even studying the mental and intellectual side of a shinobi's career. Namikaze Narumi. What things are you destined for? So what do you think this means, Conan? Asked Zabuza, in a manner so quiet, even the azure-haired woman had a difficult time discerning his words a feet away. Over the past few days, since Shisui had taken his team out on their extended mission and training session, Pain had sent her and Zabuza on a mission to investigate the disappearances of numerous town residents. The first had been some little village to southwest of Omegakure, whom had failed to report almost 2 weeks ago. They had yet to hear from the reconnaissance squad they had dispatched a week prior. All of this had then resulted in Pain taking a tighter grip on Rain Country's supervision. They could not afford to allow such errors constantly repeat themselves, if AIM was to enter a bid as a great village in the future. Be quiet, Zabuza. Have you found anything, at all? No, not a single shred of evidence. Cursing under breath at their luck, or lack thereof, Conan scanned the surrounding area once more. All she could see, however, was blackened rubble, and what little remained intact of the town before it burned down. I don't get, though, how did all this happen? We had 4 Jonin and a few Chunin stationed here on reserve duty. They couldn't have just up and left, or even have been attacked, without us knowing of it, stated Zabuza, as the swordsman glanced at the buildings. There's no chance that the whole town simply abandoned it, either, as the border to Rain Country is sealed off tightly. Which means, they should technically still be here. Or at least, within the country. Buza, look, shouted Conan, a few meters behind him, as he kneeled next to what was left of a sidewall. She was holding a small, and burnt, scroll. A piece of parchment? Does it say anything about what happened? No. Just some strange code. Sighed the woman, as she handed him the scroll. Oh, well, we need help. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.